Okay, we call the meeting back to order. And we have a special person who's going to give us the pledge and ask him to lead with us. That was backwards, but you know what I meant. Dylan is Lackey's furry brother. Lackey is Dylan's furry brother. Dylan, please stand.
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Councilman Thomas, would you recognize?
Yes, tonight, Madam Mayor, we have the proud pastor of the DCC. Pastor Chad is going to come and give us our invocation, sir. Right there, sir.
Father, tonight we want to thank you for your loving kindness. Lord, we invite your presence in this place. God, I'm reminded of an old song that says he has the whole world in his hands. And as I look and I see that banner that says, in God we trust, that God, truly our hope is in you. So, Father, I want to pray for each and every one of our councilmen, our mayor. God, I pray that you would grant to them the spirit of wisdom, revelation, and knowledge in you. That, God, the decisions that are made come right from your heart and your desire for our city. And so, Lord, tonight we ask that as discussions are made, that, God, you would give them that wisdom, revelation of knowledge in you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Please be seated, and thank you, Pastor. This is, I am going to do the attorney's report, and if you would, please, Mr. Lemieux.
Yes, we have a closed session. Address the items that are on the closed session agenda for the special meeting. The City versus Matasantos case, our report was a status report. The case continues. The attorney-client privilege should cover that so we can protect the city. It's a case against the state of California. Real property negotiations, as shown on the agenda, were not brought to conclusion. They continue to occur, and there's nothing to bring to the public's attention at this time because there's no deals are being made. Cameron Rainwater versus City of Ridgecrest was a lawsuit that has been dismissed. It's over. The city didn't pay anything for that lawsuit, any damages. City manager's performance evaluation was begun. Information was presented. The council is going to study the information, and a closed session will be held in the future, in the very near future, to continue the performance evaluation. No final action was taken on that. We got done quicker than we expected.
Thank you, sir. The next item is presentations, and I have to tell you, Sergeant Myers, I don't know where you are. I can't see you. But we all fought, there you are. We all fought over who was going to make this presentation, and so we figured one of us could read one sentence and the other could read the next sentence and the other, but we changed. So Lori is going to make the presentation, and Mike is going to make another presentation. So if you all will join us up at the dais, and if you will join us too.
So while he does his greeting back there, Mike, you might as well come on up here. And I think it's a fair statement to say that we are very, very sad to see you go. I'm happy for you, but I'm going to miss the daylights out of you, so I'm still going to blow up your cell phone, just so you know. And thank you to your family for all that they've put up with over the years. Whereas Sergeant Michael Myers began his career with the city on June 21st, 1989 as a police officer for the city of Ridgecrest, and he worked a variety of assignments throughout his career, including patrol officer, range master, traffic officer, dare officer, detective, patrol watch commander, traffic sergeant, terrorist liaison officer, PACT law enforcement director, and teen court judge. And Sergeant Mike Myers wrote and administered several OTS, which is the Office of Traffic Safety, and California State Parks off-highway grants. Personally, thank you. Since he became the traffic sergeant, the Ridgecrest Police Department has been awarded over $500,000 to purchase much-needed equipment and aid in the funding and enforcement of DUI, traffic, and OHV safety for the city of Ridgecrest. And Officer Mike Myers received multiple commendations throughout his career from this police department and other outside agencies that include the Los Angeles Police Department for his participation in the worst riot their city had ever experienced during the 1992 Los Angeles riots. And during his career, Sergeant Mike Myers was selected as Officer of the Year for the Ridgecrest Police Department in the year 1994, Supervisor of the Year in 2009 and 2014. He also earned the Treasured California Highway Patrol 10851 Award for Auto Theft Recovery in 1994 and 2003 Kern County Law Enforcement Foundation Exceptional Officer Award. Sergeant Myers received multiple letters of appreciation from the public throughout his career, thanking him for his exceptionally high level of professionalism, kindness, dedication, and excellence in performing his duties. And Sergeant Myers is known for his humorous micromanagement of the traffic and OHV equipment, commonly referred to as his empire by many. Some claim that not even the chief has all the keys to the traffic division kingdom. I won't tell him either. Sergeant Myers has retired after providing over 27 years of faithful and honorable service to our community. Now, therefore be it proclaimed, the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest does hereby recognize and thank Ridgecrest Police Sergeant Mike Myers for his professional and personal dedication to the City of Ridgecrest on this occasion of his retirement. And you are going to be deeply, deeply missed.
I was saddened after I got elected on the city council that Mike informed me that he was going to retire in a year. He told me that he was hired when I was on the city council, and now he was going to retire, that I was back on the city council. So it's with really great sadness that I present you with this proclamation, and really want to thank you personally for your friendship and for all your years of service with the city.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Okay, we'll get this.
Sure.
I have my presentation. I've worked with Mike for 27 years. Worked with him as a patrol officer, worked with him while I was a sergeant and detectives, and then most importantly, worked with him while I was chief and Mike was in charge of our traffic unit. Now, for the 6 years he was in charge of the traffic unit, Mike was our primary outreach for the community. He worked with several different organizations for parades, Petroglyph Festival, you name it, he was there. Mike's mission was to try and make things happen in the community, to work with people not to just say no, but to try and make events happen, because as events happen in the community, it draws us together. And Mike was a great ambassador for the department. He also took the traffic unit places that had never gone in the history of the department. When we started off, we had very little equipment, and motorcycles, OHV equipment, as well as a trailer that we use for our OTS deployments. And Mike was real integral in getting that stuff. It was more than just him writing the grants. It was him establishing the relationship with these entities that was able to provide us the money to get the grants. And if it hadn't been for Mike, we probably wouldn't have received any of these things. You know, on a personal note, Mike's always been very loyal, extremely competent. We created a new term, I think Sergeant Bell did, called conology. Mike was very good at establishing cone patterns at traffic collisions and parade routes and everything like that. So he probably got more cones for the department than anybody in its history. I think we probably have about 2,000 or 3,000 of them stored someplace that we've got throughout the grants. But Mike's been a very good employee, very loyal to the city, He could have left 15, 20 years ago, and he elected to stay. And he, fought his way back for some things, and he's just been very loyal and done a very good job. Also like to thank Christy for supporting Mike and allowing him to work with us as long as he did. I know that he'll have dinner ready for you every night and the house clean. And I understand he has a whole long list of honeydews that he needs to have done, yes, so we'll meet with him occasionally, make sure he stays on track. And Mike also has, 2 adult children, Kyle and Micah. They're doing very well, and Kyle's here tonight. So with that, Mike, I do have a crystal trophy for you in honor of your 27 years with us and your retirement. So I'd like to present this to you. And if you wish to say a few words, you're more than welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I certainly appreciate everyone that's here tonight. I had an incredible retirement party just a few days ago, and it was just, I'm so grateful for the turnout and the support that I received from everyone. All I can tell you is that it just feels like yesterday that I started. If you find a job you love, you never work a day in your life, and I truly loved this job, and I loved working for the Ridgecrest Police Department, and I've worked for many chiefs, and they've all given me a lot of knowledge and things to work with, and some of the old timers have taught me how to work with the people in the community, and it's very important. And I certainly hope that some of the new guys that are coming up here are going to realize that it's very important to work with you. And I tried to show them that, and they're fantastic guys. I'm going to miss every single one of them. I've had a relationship with not just the police department, but the city hall personnel as well, and I can tell you that I'm going to miss them equally as much. They've been such a big help to me over the years, and working together for a lot of the things that we have to do in order to keep the grants running and things like that. So I want to thank them as well. And I have to thank my family. I have to. They have put up with an enormous amount of burden as far as weird hours, not being home, things like that. So, you know what, out of total respect for my wife and my son and daughter, I missed a lot of things that I wish I could have attended. So I appreciate their support over these years, and I appreciate the community and what it's done for me. Thank you very much.
We have one more commendation.
One more honor for a retiring member of our department, Lackey, Officer Bill Groves, or Detective Groves. Can you come on down, please? Bill Groves' children, you guys want to come on up? Lackey joined the Ridgecrest Police Department in 2009 as he was an 18-month-old German Shepherd. Just got out of training. The dog was assigned to Officer Bill Groves. Our canine program is designed as a force multiplier. The dog's in the car to assist the officer. Dog's also used to track people as well as do drug searches. But most importantly, it's a partner to the officer that's assigned to provide protection, as well as, like I said, a force multiplier. Lackey was served with us for 6 years, and this January, when Detective Groves was reassigned to detectives, we elected to retire Lackey. He has reached his service life. We sold Lackey to Bill Groves and his family so he can continue living with them for the rest of his life. And Lackey did a really good job with us throughout the year. So Lackey, congratulations on your retirement. All I have for you is a plaque. I should have probably brought a milk bone or something like that, or a treat, but sorry, I forgot. So I'd like to present this plaque to Officer Bill Groves in grateful appreciation for your dedication and service to the Ridgecrest Police Department K-9 Unit, October 2009 to January 2016.
This is our standing ovation for Lackey, too. So thank you. Lackey does.
Yeah. All right. So he had a speech, but I told him it was inappropriate, so he's not going to do it today. But while I'm up here, I just want to say thank you to the chief and thank you to the city for allowing me this opportunity. Also, thank you to my family for putting up with me and the dog. So, thank you.
Bring him up front.
Okay, everybody, just right here.
All the other officers up there, thank you for coming and sharing their joy and ours. Our respect to all of you. Thank you. Okay, the fun stuff is over. Now to the actual work. A presentation by Parks and Recreation on the new concession stand at the Kerr-McGee Youth Sports Center. Mr. Patton.
You trying to say Parks isn't fun stuff?
Not nearly as fun as Lackey. You will never beat Lackey.
That's true. True too.
Okay, now fun stuff for you.
All right, this is going to be really short and simple and sweet because if you recall a couple of months back that a couple of members of the public and the council wanted to see what the project looks like for the concession stand at the Kerr-McGee Youth Sports Complex. The project is scheduled to be done by the 29th of this month, but I got a call today from our consultant saying that it's probably going to be pushed back for a couple of weeks. So this is just kind of give you an idea of where we are and what the project looks like, and that's about it. So. There we go. So this was a few weeks ago. This is just showing every time they report to us, they send pictures to kind of show the progress they've made. So this is the last reporting, which is probably about 3 weeks ago. This is a solid brick building that they're making. So let's go through a couple of these pictures.
Are they making it offsite?
Yeah, that's I believe in Northern California is where it's being constructed. It'll be delivered in 2 pieces. It comes completely constructed on foundation and everything. The site work has been done at the park already. So basically, it'll come in on 2 trucks and they'll sit it into place, and cement work will be done around it, and we're done. So there's just a few pictures of what while it's under construction that they've sent to us along the way.
What is that, Jason? I can't.
That was just the plumbing.
Oh, okay.
That was just the plumbing.
They've already put all the plumbing in.
Yeah, I think
utilities.
they're pretty much done to be complete because it was supposed to be set on the ground by the 29th. So I think some of the rain and mud they had to dig out. So I think when the rain and the mud is causing an issue here, and not with the construction of the building, just because every time it rains, it kind of fills in the 1.5 foot where they actually set the building in. So they have to go dig everything out. So you can see it's the shell is almost completely done here. And like I said, this was about 3 weeks ago. So this is actually what the building is going to look like when it's complete. What we'll see at the facility. It's a basic. We wanted this to be bulletproof because I spent many a year since 1977 till pretty recent at that ball field. And if you remember, the old concession stand there was made out of wood, and it got broken into probably about 2 or 3 times a year. So this one is pretty much break-in proof. The roof is metal. All the doors are solid steel. There's no exposed hinges or way to pry the doors open. So, this thing will be sitting out there for the next, after we're dead, which is what we wanted. So that's what the building looks like. And the next slide out, there we go. It just kind of shows you the layout. That's the front of the building there. You can see the concession stand. And I actually made a phone call today because I was looking at this. I noticed that the women's bathroom has a stall and a urinal, which I don't think the women's bathroom is. So I called the consultant, and they said that that's been corrected. So it's just something I noticed. I was looking at the plans, and I was like, what the heck? So, yeah, I don't think the ladies would appreciate that too much. So it's a basic there's a urinal and a toilet, ADA compliant on the men's side, and then one ADA compliant and a regular stall on the women's side. The utility chase there you see is where all that piping you saw. It's all the piping, so no one can get to, again, that bulletproof kind of vandalism-proof kind of mentality. Nothing's exposed so that the public can reach it. So all the plumbing and things inside that locked center cabinet there that supports the restrooms and the concession stand. And you can see the front there. The concession stand is ADA compliant and has the sinks and code compliant. Has 2 windows, one for taking orders and one for supplying orders. And on the back side of the building, you see the doors to the restrooms. And you can't really tell, but there's also wind breaks on the back doors of the restrooms so that the wind, as we know, we have pretty significant wind here, so that the wind doesn't rip the doors off the hinges and get kids caught in the doorways and stuff like that. So I think that's
What
all
is
the
the
pictures.
square footage of that, Mr. Patton?
I don't remember what the total square footage is of
Okay.
the building off the top of my head.
Sorry.
That's okay. I can get that to you.
That's okay. I
It's-
just wanted to.
Yeah, I
share.
don't remember off the top of my head.
It did, and I
It
was
did,
trying
but
to see it.
I can't read it
I
from
can't
here.
read it.
I don't know if it says down there at the bottom the total square footage or not, but
It's 34 by 20. 34 by 20, like it says.
Okay.
29. There you go.
800.
hey, look at that.
30. That's 24. 24 by
22.8 by 26.8. Yeah.
Thank you.
So a little over 500 square feet, looks like. 600. So that's pretty much it. That's really the project. It's not a big, huge project. It's a pretty simple project. And I know you guys and members of the public wanted to see what the final product was going to look like in the end. So, and if we go back 2, I think. Yeah, about 600. So that's what it'll look like. It's a nice looking building, but more importantly, it's built to survive anything we can throw at it for the next 60, 70. Well, probably longer than that, because the old building that was there was probably there for 50 years. And it was still standing, barely, but it was still standing. And it was always in the plans to do this project anyway with the TAB fund projects that's coming up. But we actually, obviously, since the building burned down, we stepped it up and got it done as quick as we could, as quickly as the process allows, let's say. So that's it, unless you have any other questions.
How long before the construction will be completed, approximately?
It was scheduled to be done on the 29th of this month, and I got a call today from the consultant saying it was going to be probably 2 weeks more, so mid-February.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, the next item is public comment. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council may not take action on that item that does not appear on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes, and public comment section of this agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name. Is there public comment? Mr. Matthews.
Yeah, Dave Matthews, address is on file. Just a couple of comments tonight. One of them is concerning Sergeant Myers' retirement. It's too bad he's not here, but I can definitely say that the word among the law-abiding citizens of Ridgecrest is we're going to miss him, and a few other accolades. Now, what the opinion is among the non-law-abiding, I don't know. I'm not going to contest to that. One other possibility that I would like to mention here that are happening, I don't know how many of you are really attuned to some of the popular music these days, but the Eagles will never be the same. Co-founder Don Henley passed away, and I'm sorry, you're right, Glenn Frey. Thank you for the correction. They had a song they put out years ago, which was one of my favorites. It's called The Last Resort. If you haven't heard it, I suggest you find a copy of it and listen to it. It gives a good philosophy of what some of this country should be all about and not about. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Benny Fuller. So I got a couple of things. One's just real quick. I was wondering if there's any word on when the construction happening, the road work at Norma and Drummond might be done.
Does anyone have an answer for that, staff?
Norman Drummond. Would you repeat that again, Norma, and where?
Drummond. You got the two metal slabs over a hole in the ground sticking up about 2-3 inches. Or at least I think it's a hole out of that, or it's just a really bad patch job.
I am not aware of that unless there's a repair, a water line repair.
Yeah, maybe it's something like that.
That would probably be a utility company.
Okay. Just curious because the light's been on stop mode for a couple of days.
That was PG&E. I saw them out there.
All right. Okay. Moving on to, I wanted to bring this up last time, but I ended up having to work some overtime, so I couldn't make it. But it seems fortuitous because somewhat relates to item number 5. But so I've been asking around, as a new resident of Ridgecrest, many people are unhappy with MediaCom and service. However, with Project 395 having completed a couple of years ago, there is fiber optic line that is actually run through the town along China Lake Boulevard. And I think now would be a good time, what with some of these, looking at what needs to be done with road repair. I'd like to propose that we look into doing a study to assess the feasibility of combining road repairs with laying fiber optic cable. So as we go and tear out old roads, we can lay fiber optic line and allow for that last mile of line service. So if we could partner with either an existing ISP provider such as Race Communications, which is in Mojave, Boron, I'm not sure if it's in Barstow, but it's servicing some of that 395 stuff, or if we could create a public utility like the city of Sandy, Oregon has, where both of these options, right now they're charging $60 a month for gigabit internet service, that's gigabit up and down, versus now what we are getting is in the megabit range. So right now I think I have a 15 megabit plan. There's 50 megabyte plans, but with MediaCom we have a data cap, which is archaic. Most companies do not do that anymore. So If we could do that, it would, I think, benefit our current community, because there's, certainly with this tech background we have out here, there's a want for that. And I've heard people say they'd be willing to pay $1,000, $2,000 to run out fiber line to their own homes. Obviously this is not per month, but they would be willing to spend some serious money to do that. And also, if we want to try and attract more businesses out to this area, if we want to try and get, especially tech, style companies, people with, these high-paying jobs, having a gigabit internet service out here would be a great marketing point for the town. In fact, when I was getting ready to move out here myself, Mediacom, its ratings and service capabilities was actually a real deterrent. So this could help with some of that.
If I could interrupt here, I think I'm going to be able to give you some very, very good news. We're having a report from the Internet Economic Development Committee on the 17th of next month. That committee it consists of Jay Chun, Dr. Earl Ferguson, Jim Suvar, Tim Knipe, Chip. Who else, Chip? Who else is on that committee? Oh, Dave Matthews. They're going to report on the 17th. That we have been following in committee their progress. I'm very pleased. Bill Sumners is another one I forgot. And they're going to report to us on the 17th and ask for some direction from us. So I don't miss that one.
Yeah, that's the 17th of February?
February 17th.
Okay. Maybe write that down. That'll be here?
Yes.
Okay. And so I don't know if maybe it would be possible to go for federal funding or state funding on this, but I think, we could present it as both, road improvement and also economic and communications improvement platform.
They're going to give us some options.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's about all I have.
Thank you.
So, all right. Thank you.
Mr. Morgan.
Stephen Morgan, 729 North Inyo Street. I'm here on behalf of the Ridgecrest Lions Club. Just like to inform the council and the community about a couple of upcoming events that I think everyone would be interested in. The first, unfortunately, has a scheduling conflict with another event. However, we've moved it 5 times. We're not moving it again. The Ridgecrest Lions Club, in association with the Ridgecrest Police Department, is going to be putting on a seminar on January 25th in the Kerr-McGee Center Red Rock and Chimney Peak rooms, and the topic will be Tips for Fighting Fraud in 2016. This is something for business people as well as members of the general public to receive some information on what's going on as far as fraud-related activities and how that you can prevent yourself from being a victim of fraud. We have 3 speakers: Detective Aaron Tucker from the Ridgecrest Police Department, Ashley Glover from the Sheriff's Crime Prevention Unit, and Deputy District Attorney David Wolf will be speaking. So it's 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. on January 25th, again in the Kerr-McGee Red Rock and Chimney Peak rooms. I have some flyers. I'll put them on the dais here. I have a copy for each council member and one for Rachel as well. And then the second item for next month, February 16th, right here in the Ridgecrest City Council chambers, the multiple District 4 California Lions will be having their one of their student speakers competitions. It's a club level competition, a high school speech competition where the students will be presenting on community service. What does it mean to me? It's open to the public. It'll be from 6 to 8 p.m. So the Ridgecrest Lions Club invites all members of the public who would like to come and hear some outstanding high school speakers to come and join us that evening. And I will be looking for 5 judges. One of them is up here. One can't do it, but the other 4 can. So I'll be looking for judges, and I hope that everyone will participate, come out, and listen to these students. They do a great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
April LaPierre, LAPIERRE, 1141 South Norma, with the Ridgecrest Military Banner Program. I'm here to give you guys an update on our program. Sorry. We started the program at the end of September. We took it over with Jerry Taylor's consent. We physically went out and did a preliminary, verified all the banners and established a roster. We're about 3/4 of the way done. It was a lot of work. I'm not really sure how one person was able to do this job. We have figured out that a lot of the time has taken with phone calls and realizing that a lot of the contact information is not updated. So it's been very challenging to get a hold of families to make sure that we understand what their status is and then try to get the banners back to the families, which we've continued to work on that. We've identified a vendor for the banners, and we have been able to identify a vendor for updated banner hardware. It's actually a Banner Saver hardware. They use it in Bullhead City. A lot of their banners have been able to be up for 3 to 5 years with this new Banner Saver hardware. It's a little bit more expensive, but I think the longevity of the banners, it's going to be worth the cost. Currently working on a soft opening. We've got about 3 participants that we're going to kind of fly with the preliminary soft opening. We're hoping to start taking applications in the spring. We've identified we'll be able to start posting these banners hopefully 3 times a year, March, June, and October, once everything is set up and it's going. We'd like to thank Mike Cash with Operation Family Fund and Jason Hale with Walmart. They were generous and gave us donations to start our program and get it off the ground. So we're very thankful for them. We do have one question. We have a business owner that has offered to give a significant donation. The question is he wanted to be able to utilize the banners and put his logo on the banner as well. So I wasn't sure if that is something that is allowed or not. We've tabled it until I could bring it up with you guys. Obviously, it can't be addressed tonight, but we'll need to get some kind of guidance from you guys as far as if that's something that's going to be allowed. So,
April, when I talked to the business owner who I think I put him in contact with you, and is just for clarification, what he told me, and I want to make sure that he's telling you it's a small item on the bottom of the flag. It isn't like it's the majority of the flag. And we needed some direction from staff and legal counsel. Is there any problem doing that, since it is a semi-project of ours, ownership? It is, we are the sponsor of it for insurance purposes, but we are not doing it.
We can look at that. It's not on the agenda tonight.
Right, I knew that. Yep. They will do that for you.
Thank you. And then lastly, I'd like to pay recognition to Jerry Taylor. Again, we took this on at the end of September. We're, mid-January, and we're still trying to get things going. We're hoping to be done in the spring. So the fact that one individual with a few volunteers was able to do this is just, it's amazing. So we're very thankful for what Jerry started here, and we're happy that we're being able to take it over and have it continue. And then also Terry May, he's volunteering and has continued to volunteer and continues to help us. We're looking to kind of get some more helpers for him because he's a very busy man. But he has continued to step up to the plate and help us when we need it. And then lastly, we'd like to thank you guys, the City Council, for your support and for helping us keep this program in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys are doing a great job. Very proud of what you're doing. Mr. Whitnick.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Hello, Wayne. I haven't seen you for a while. Good to see you. Very good. Mr. Patton, we got a light burnout up here. Help me out there, okay? Next is that everybody should have received this notice from SCE about closing down the local office here. Did some checking on that, And the PUC does have to approve that. They just can't arbitrarily shut it down. And in starting to check and calling in, they're planning on closing them in Mammoth, Bishop, here, Barstow, and the list goes on. So I have a problem with it personally. I think they should keep that office open here so that people can go in and pay the bills and not have to go through a store to pay their bills. Of course, their reasoning is that everybody's paying online and that type of thing, and I'm sure a lot of people are. But I've been down there on many occasions paying my bills, and I see these people down there handling a lot of problems that people come forward when they're having problems with SCE, and they're handling it right there at the window. And even though that hasn't been my situation, I've witnessed a number of times where people are down there asking for help and what can I do with this, and just general advice from these people without having to go to a 1-800 number, go through a bunch of voicemail prompts, and maybe finally reach somebody to talk to. There's a 60-day notice on this. I would encourage, whether you think it does any good or not, it wouldn't hurt anything if the city took a position on this and sent a letter, or all of you individually on letterhead, asking them not to close it. It's like I said, it certainly wouldn't hurt anything if you did that. And maybe, just maybe, by arguing the fact that Ridgecrest is the largest city between Lancaster and the Nevada border, to have one center here on the Eastern Sierra still available to the people would be appropriate as far as I'm concerned. So I would just encourage possibly the city to take a position on that. I mean, what's it going to hurt? It might even change it, and they might keep it open. So that's my request.
Thank you. Good suggestion. Sam?
Thank you. Sophia Merck, Sam.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I also wanted to say thank you to Sergeant Myers. I mean, he was wonderful. To see him with the kids, to see him with off-road people, to explain a lot of things. And he had a commitment with the people. And it was really good to see. I also want to concur about SC. I was very concerned about that. And if you guys remember, we were able to hold some PUC meetings actually here in Ridgecrest. And so it is not that difficult to do. But we really need to look at this because there's a lot of times that people have problems with SCE and they go to call and they try to get on the internet, and usually when your power is out, your power is out. And you can't call in. A lot of people have trouble. So they do take care of things at the windows. And it's really, really important that the city does take a stand on this, at least to hold a public meeting from the PUC here and get a response from them. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Mr. Matthews.
Dave Matthews again. I have to add to the SCE comments also. I pay my bill down there almost all the time, either that or I send it in via U.S. mail. There's a number of reasons. It's more convenient if I'm going down that way anyhow, like to Walmart or down to get gas or something, and then I just swing by and pay the bill. I was down there last week, as a matter of fact, and I had to wait for some trucks to get out of the way so I could pull in there. So it's well utilized for whatever reasons. And I think some of the reasons are that there are a lot of people who don't have computers, who aren't online, and who don't have the money half the time to go pay their bill. And they can make arrangements right there with the SCE personnel. And I think it's very important to keep that office open. There's too many now that are going online, and the next thing you know, we're just going to be couch potatoes sitting at home doing nothing, and people are just taking our money right and left. So please, council, if you so desire, back it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Okay, the next item on the agenda is council announcements. Let's start down here with Jim.
I don't have any announcements.
Lori?
None.
Mike? Eddie?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have one, but I don't have all of the details. I wanted to announce that on February the 26th from 5 to 9, the team will be having a bonding night. I'm not sure where it's going to be at, but they want to put it out there for media that they will know that there's going to be a teen bonding night from 5 to 9 o'clock. Not sure where it's going to be at this time. So teens that are out there and younger teens that are sitting in here, we're going to have a bonding night on that night.
Okay, I'm going to make an announcement tonight to remind you that former Governor Pete Wilson is going to be here. Sorry, Steve, if you're still here. On the same night, same time at the Marriott, he is making a presentation with members of the Southwest Defense Alliance, and it's going to be open community. He's asking y'all to come and talk to him, listen to him. He wants to hear what you have to say, as well as what he has information for us. And it is a $20 cost, and you make reservations at 760-375-8331. That's the chamber. And so you all are invited. It is the 20, it's next Monday. I think it's the 25th. 25th. Okay. Normally, I would make this announcement or a report when I give my committee reports, but so many of you leave, and I thought this was pretty important. At the last East Kern Air Pollution Control District meeting, there was a discussion about the grants that are available. These are to relieve PM10 emissions, to help pay for getting gas guzzling cars off the road, and they are offering, and in the past it has been a matching grant. This grant now is $2,000 for extra low emission vehicles, $3,000 for the purchase of a partial zero emission vehicle, and $5,000 for the purchase of a zero emission vehicle. There is also infrastructure up to $50,000 if you want to pave a dirt road or anything that is bringing dust into the area. The grants have been done in the past by a committee would evaluate them all and then make recommendations and vote on how many that actual funding was for. In the past, there's been significant funding, and I know virtually every governmental entity in this valley has taken advantage of that. They are doing it differently this year because they're asking for the public if you want to be involved. And so the time to apply is now, and it ends on the 26th of February. You can go to the Eastern Kern Air Pollution Control District, get the information, and this is an opportunity where you would have to make as much as a 50% matching funds. Now it's no matching funds. So I just want you to be aware of it. And if you have a nonprofit or a business that's going to make the air fresher cleaner better in East Kern, go there and apply for that grant. Okay, that's the only announcements I have right now. So we're going to go to the consent calendar. All items on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by city staff and will be approved in one motion if no member of the council or the public wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anyone, that item may be removed from the consent calendar and will be considered separately with public comment before each action is taken. Item number 4, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign the notice of completion and the Cycle 5 Highway Safety Improvement Program, HSIP, signing and striping of 12 intersections, authorizing the city clerk to file the notice of completion, and authorizing the release of retention in the amount of $12,850, 35 days after recording of the notice of completion. Item number 5, adopt a resolution to approve the professional services agreement with the firm of Wildan Engineering in the amount of $25,000 to provide an update to the pavement management PMS study and authorize the city manager, Dennis Spear, to execute the professional services agreement. Item number 6, adopt a resolution of the City Council of the City of Ridgecrest setting the public hearing for unmet transit needs findings. Number 7, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to sign the notice of completion on the project fiscal year 15-16 pavement rehabilitation project, authorizing the city clerk to file the notice of completion and authorizing the release of retention in the amount of $42,685.30, recording of the notice of completion. Number 8, adopt a resolution approving the contract change order number 1 for the amount of $2,846.25 with the contractor JTS Construction for the Kerr-McGee Restroom Concession Project, and authorize the city manager Dennis Spear to sign change order number 1. Number 8, adopt a resolution of the City of Ridgecrest Successor Redevelopment Agency approving the recognized obligation, the ROPS, for 2016-17. Number 10, approve draft minutes of the Ridgecrest City Council Successor Redevelopment Agency Housing Authority Financing Authority minutes for the meeting dated December 16th, 2015. Is there anybody in council that would like to have any of these items pulled? None. Is there anybody in the public who would like any of these items pulled? My goodness. Okay. We are going to then entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
3.
Mike.
I was quicker.
Sure.
Okay, Councilmember Mauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Mayor Breeden.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Acton.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sanders.
Aye.
All approve.
Okay, the next item, discussion other action items. The first one is presentation and discussion of the monthly fiscal report. Mr. Staley?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Council members, tonight we have the November financial report. I'm going to follow the same format as we did last month and just give you an update of where we're at. So we'll go through the general fund revenue, followed by the actual expenditure budgets, then the cash flow to see where we're at on a cash basis, and then we'll finish it up with other funds. This is pretty much the same graph I showed you before. This kind of shows you the trends that we do as far as revenue in green and expenditure in the red. It kind of jumps all over the place and then skyrockets for revenue at the end of the year as we accrue for revenue earned during the period that's not received till after the fiscal year, and kind of drop off on expenditures as we wind down the activities for the fiscal year. This is the year-to-date revenue. You see, last fiscal year we were at 27%. This fiscal year we're at 22%. Now that may seem like a large variance. I added this next table in today after this was already printed. And this is what I want to call a normalization. So what I've done is I've gone through and I've stripped out those one-time monies just so you can kind of see the programmatic, get an apples-to-apples comparison. And if you look here, 20% would be last year, 19% this year, so we're still tracking with the 1% variance there.
Do you want questions afterwards? Because I know you said questions at the end.
You can do them during, too.
Okay.
If it's easier.
Could you tell me what is current service charges? What is that?
Current service charges, that'll include items such as for this one would be the school resource officer payment, any other services we provide out in the community. And for the most part, that is the big one, is the student resource,
Okay.
school resource officer.
Intergovernmental, okay.
But-
Okay, three,
Intergovernmental is any revenue received from the county, from the state, or from the federal government. In this case, this is the Prop 30 money that we receive. I believe that is the largest portion of that is Proposition 30.
is there a normalization that's going to, no, I'm looking at the one I had, it's the same one there, okay. Because last year, we had 42%, which would have been 335,000 approximately of the 807. And this year, we only have 47,000 of 556 approximately.
Right.
What's the change?
We received our Prop 30 money earlier than normal. So we received it at the first of the year. We're expecting it to receive it in the second half of the fiscal year this year.
But, okay, we received it earlier last year than
Yes.
this year. Okay, that explains that. Okay, other revenue. What is that?
Other revenue.
Other revenue, obviously, but,
Let's see.
because again, there's a significant difference.
Yes.
And I'm wondering what revenue we did not get that we got last year, or was last year's only a one-time revenue? Other.
Made my notes. I didn't.
I'm sorry, next time, since you
that-
were
that's
good
fine.
enough to give it to us early, because in the past, we've been getting it that night, so I actually had time to read it. And I should have given you the same courtesy by asking ahead.
And I'd
My
writ-
apologies.
I'd written it all down, but I don't believe I grabbed my right papers
Okay.
when I came down.
I will ask that one later.
That's
If then, the transfer from other funds,
Yes, the reason why there's a big reduction there is we transferred funds to pay for the parks maintenance property last year. That was, $530,000, I believe, something
Okay.
in the ballpark there.
so this year, we're not planning, because the budget is $1,838,000, and we've only put in $227,000.
Yes.
What is the difference there? Is that we will not need any, obviously not going to need that, but what is that we're going to get?
That's all our overhead allocations
Okay.
that we charge for administration and the other funds.
Okay. Okay, on that page, I don't have any more. Anybody else?
I did take the time to break out the Measure L revenue there, so you can see that separate from the other sales and use tax.
That was interesting to see, and it was interesting to see how close we were.
Yeah, we're
So-
tracking pretty good.
Okay.
So this is the bell curve the line graph right now. December is when we get our first allotment of property tax, and so we'll see a spike in the next monthly report. This is a comparison of 15 to 16. You can see where we were above in 15 and where we're above in 16. Licenses and permits, that's the large permit that was pulled for a retail opening. So that's why there's a difference there.
Yep. Thought that.
And then this shows the bars along with the lines. The benchmark is 42% if you're at a straight line, so you can see which areas licenses and permits were above, real property transfer were above, and everything else were still below that line.
What are you considering a baseline there? Like, what does the baseline mean?
A straight line, as in we're 5/12 through the fiscal year.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We know the revenue doesn't come in a straight line, but just to give you a reference point.
Okay.
The department budgets. Last year we were at 37% of expended. This year we're at 35%, so we're a little below. You can see some of the departments that are getting close, the activities that are getting close. The non-departmental we're above because we have a lot of, trying to think of the word, we pay a lot of dues, membership dues, such as League of California Cities and those that hit one time during the year. Same with advertising and promotion. We have the Petroglyph Festival.
But we had 494,000 in 14-15, and we're only budgeting 59,885 for this year. That's on the non-department, and that
Yes,
seems significantly different.
that's the other side of the property purchase.
Okay. All right. If you look at, let me see, make sure I'm on the right one. If I'm reading this right, you look like what you started out with and what you ended up with. And if I'm reading this correctly, we're down $700,000.
Are we looking at another slide?
I'm looking at your department budget to date, that one.
Okay.
I mean, am I not seeing this? I have to say, I love what you're doing. I appreciate what you're doing. I work my budgets at my office by month, and I know that you all can't do that quite that easily because you're looking at these things that are coming in one fell swoop, but if you amortized it all over 12 months, we would be able to see, I think, more significantly what's happening over time rather than these big, giant, huge, because to me, that what I see is, if I'm interpreting correctly, we're down $700,000.
From what we brought in to
From what
we've
we brought in,
expended.
yeah, and is that correct?
That is correct.
So are we
That's why we have that-
short $700,000?
No, we're not short yet. This is where we have that cash, why we want to fund balance, why we currently have, when we started the year, we had 1.6 million. That's to float us through until we get our revenues in.
Okay. Would it be impossible or difficult to see this on a
You're looking at a revolving year.
revolving year monthly? I mean, I don't know what time it takes.
I don't think it's impossible.
I don't want to waste your time, but it would give me, and I assume the rest of us are as dumb as I am. Maybe some of you are a whole lot smarter, but I'd like to see it so I can look at it. Okay, this month last year was where we were. This month, so what months are good months for us, and what months are bad months, and how we allocate our money and our revenue. I mean, we don't actually allocate our revenue. We know what's coming in. And if that it doesn't make sense to the rest of you, I'll withdraw my request. But I'm just wondering if it can be done and if it isn't significant difficult to do it.
It can be done. Let me look and see what it'll entail.
I don't want to waste your time, and I don't want to waste council's time. I know that you don't have 1 million people in your department trying to accomplish all this. But if it would help us see each month where things are going, it's better than a year at a time.
Yeah, we can take a look. And just for a little background, we have not SunGuard. We have New World here right now, our new financial system. So we're working with them to develop that. I'll talk to them and see if that's something that will be readily available in the new software system as well. And I'll look, see what we can do with the current one we're using.
If the rest of you like this better and it makes more sense, I don't object to
I don't
changing
think
it.
I'm smart enough to understand what you're what you're even requesting.
To
so.
see the revenue and the expenditures by the month, because some months you may have huge revenues and very few expenditures and the other way around. And we can look at that and budget better I do that in my business, and maybe that's how I can budget and know that this month I can afford to spend X because I know that's coming in.
So you're saying do that instead of a year-to-date
A
accumulated?
year-to-date, yes.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Looking at it on a monthly basis.
Yeah.
Well, we take a look at that. That will actually be easier if we're just looking at 1 month. I can pull that.
But
and
1
add
month
it in.
over,
Mhm.
so we're getting it
1 month
last year
all the
and
way
this year. Through, and then January, February, March, April, May, compared to January, February, March, April, May last year.
Yeah, I think we
Okay.
can do that.
If you can, and there's no objection. I don't want to make your life more difficult than it is. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Dennis, you got something you want to say?
Well, I was just going to say, from a standpoint of a budget manager's perspective, we like to know what we look at is BVEs, and we look at BVRs, the budget versus revenues, and the budget versus expenses. And the point is, like in, for instance, streets budget, we do our work between April and November of the year. We could sit on a large amount of money as far as what our expenditures are, and not be expending it all for 6 months out of the year, and then all of a sudden we end up spending it all. And the revenues, though, come in differently. They come in chunks, except for the gas tax. They don't come in all at once. So from a budget manager's perspective, I mean, I understand what you want to see, and if, Ty can provide that, but I just wanted to make it clear that from a budget manager's perspective, the monthly doesn't really help us. We like to know where we're at any point in time in the year relative to how we know we expend the monies and whether the revenues are there at that particular point in time to spend it.
Well, if you need both, I don't want to waste your time doing both, so.
Well, Ty can provide staff that information apart from the presentation to the council.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just trying to. I just need to think through that in my head of if that. I'm just trying to think through in my head of whether which is better. I see what you're saying and I see what Dennis is saying, but I don't know what makes more sense, to be honest.
Well, let's look at one when you get your new system up. Let's look at one and see if we see value thereof, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything further on this slide? Okay. So once again, the bar graph showing our 15 versus 16, and we're pretty close. Parks and Rec is climbing up a little, community development a little bit. They have more projects they're working on this year. Public safety's below. There you can see the representation of the 42%. Looks like just 3 areas that are actually over the 42% benchmark. 3, 4. So we'll monitor those during the year to make sure we stay within the budget.
So the takeaway from this graph here, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, are we kind of predicting certain departments might be going over their budgets?
Yeah,
Is that kind of how that shows?
If you were to straight line it, I mean, you look Parks and Rec, if they were to continue the rate of spending that they are now, would be over budget. Advertising and promotion would be as well, but we know that is for the most part wrapped up, so they won't be going over. City manager, we got to watch that as well. The non-departmental, that one's harder to track because it's not a straight line in their expenditures. But if we look overall, like I said, overall with the budget, we're at 35%.
Yeah.
So there may be, if we have to shuffle some of our resources around, there is that opportunity as well.
Okay.
Here's the cash flow. As you can see, we opened the balance with physical cash of 1.6 million. That 788,000.
That's what I was talking about, yeah.
Upside down there. So we still have $900,000.
And do we anticipate that we will recover that beginning balance, or are we going to be minus 720,000?
Yes, the budget was approved to, it was a balanced budget, so we should have the 1.6 million at the end of the year. It will recover.
And for the public's benefit, that's because they always give us more towards the end of the fiscal year, correct?
Correct. Property tax, especially one of our biggest revenue sources, comes in just twice a year. We get two payments for that, which is typically in December and April.
Okay. And again, for the public's benefit, I just want to emphasize this is the importance of
Jim,
having
put your thing closer to you.
Sorry. So for the public's benefit, I just want to emphasize that that's the importance of having a reserve, is to get us through that cash flow problem as well as unexpected expenses and things like that. So, thanks.
Correct. Here's our other funds, our other major funds: gas tax, transit. Now, gas tax has a funding mechanism, both of the regular gas tax as well as Measure L. Transit has the TDA funding, which we set the unmet needs hearing for next month, and that'll allow us to process our TDA claim. Wastewater revenue is driven mainly by property tax, so that they're the same way. They get most of their money in December and April. Self-insurance is like the overhead allocation. And you can see, for the most part, the revenue is low, but a lot of that comes in later in the year, sorry. Any questions on this slide? Any additional questions? I'd be more than happy to answer.
No other council questions? Public?
Stan Rotora. My first question regarding the general fund. Last year, the revenue was just slightly over, and I'm looking at this sheet here, the year-to-date revenue. The revenue was just slightly over $14 million, and the expenditures, the other sheet that you were showing, showed that we had expenditures of just under $14 million. This question might be a repeat of something that Mayor Breeden already asked, but I couldn't actually follow the whole conversation. If you look at FY this year, 15-16, it looks like the revenue is like $13.8 million, and we're spending $14.7 million. We're spending, and I'm not sure how to interpret this. It looks like we're spending almost $1 million, $0.9 million more than our revenue. And I'm wondering, and I just heard you say that we had a balanced budget and we weren't going to dip into the reserve, and so I'm just kind of confused.
Yeah, as far as the budget side, you're looking at 2015. The reason why you see the difference there, the budget going from 13.9 million to 14.6 million on the expenditure side is at the end of every fiscal year, there's commitments and obligations that we've made during the year that may not have been completed within that fiscal year. So those encumbrances have to roll over to the following year. They're committed. And so you may have a budget of 13.9 million, but you didn't spend the 13.9 million.
Actually, the revenue is 13.8, and what it says is budget. I'm assuming that's the expenditure is 14.7. But you're saying that the reason it looks like we're spending more money than we're bringing in is that those were dollars that were previously allocated?
Correct.
Well, where is the revenue?
For the most part, those are Measure L funds that was set aside for Measure L purposes.
Okay. Anyway, you're convinced that we got a balanced budget, and regardless of what's on this sheet of paper, we're not going to spend more than we bring in.
Absolutely.
Okay. My other two questions are on the other fund sheet. On the wastewater, it looks like we've expended 12% of what we said we were going to spend. Can you tell me, what aren't we doing that we said we were going to do?
One of the primary thing, right, is the repair and rehab and replacement of the sewer lines, and I believe we're moving forward right with that as far as the design, but we still haven't put it out to bid yet.
Okay, so but are we going to make that up by the end of the year? Are we going to spend 100% of the $7.2 million?
If we get those projects under contract, yes.
Okay, are we going to get those? Are we going to get them under contract?
I'll have to defer to the status on that.
Yeah, we're anticipating having the plans to be able to at least have award a project such that those funds would be committed.
Okay. Last time we went through this, I asked a question about the $7.2 million in the budget didn't compare. I didn't have a copy of the budget at that point in time. I thought there was more money in this budget than was in the budget that was approved. And I did finally get a hold of, on the website, the wastewater budget. And based upon, the numbers weren't added up in that budget, but when I added them up with my little $20 calculator, it looked like there's like $1.3 million more in here where it says the budget then was actually authorized during the budget review back in May or whenever it was. And I asked actually the last time, I wasn't actually sure if that was the case, but now I'm convinced that is the case. Can you tell me what the extra $1.3 million is and where it came from?
Yeah, once again, these are obligations from the previous fiscal year that have rolled over into the current fiscal year, such as the engineering project with Provost and Pritchard for the wastewater treatment plant. We have a contract with them, but it's not fully expended, so those funds, that encumbrance rolls over to the next year. That alone was $972,000.
Well, the original Provost and Pritchard contract was like $2.4 million.
So there's $972,000 left that hasn't been expended on the contract.
And so there's still $400,000. That is, if the difference is $1.3 million between what was authorized and what this thing says, and then there's another $400,000.
Yeah, there's $76,000 for Houston and Harris, $21,000 for Wildan Engineering, $15,000 for BCI Trucking. These are all commitments that were made in the previous fiscal year that had to carry over.
Okay, they're real commitments that are under contract?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing no other council comment? Okay, thank you, sir. We will go on to the next item. which is the appointment to Measure L Citizens Advisory Committee. It says it's me, but Lori's appointment was the one who had resigned because he is having heart surgery. So Lori, would you make your appointment, please? Your nominations.
And I nominate actually Stephen Morgan for going on to the Measure L committee. We seem to have had some successes with workability when we've had a good mix of people, and so I think that would bring a good mix to the group. So that's my nomination.
Is there any council comments? Any public comments? You're making that motion?
I do.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm now going to do your job. Sorry.
Move it right along.
Councilmember Mauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Mayor Breeden.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Acton.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sanders.
Aye.
All approve.
Okay, the next item is council committee appointments. I had asked because there was so many of our committees that were either ad hoc or not totally defined or not exactly in our heads. And so I had asked everyone to see if they wanted to make any changes on their appointments. And everybody said they wanted to stay, or I did not hear. Is that the way I understand?
That would indicate they wanted to stay, right? If they,
Yeah. Okay, I need to make a change because I have been attending the KernCog meetings, and I have another meeting that is was potentially going to impact that. And I asked Councilman Mauer if he would attend in my behalf. I know that, Jim, you are the alternate, but I know you haven't been able to go to all those because of your commitments.
There's been a couple, yeah.
And I'm wondering, is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay, so we need to send a letter to KernCog noting that Councilman Mauer and Councilman Sanders are the appointments to that committee, if there is no problem.
That'll need to be motion.
Okay,
So Mike's the primary, I'm the alternate, is that what you're saying? Or?
yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay, then, can I move that? I'll move it.
Second.
Thomas.
Councilmember Mauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Mayor Breeden.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Acton.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sanders.
Aye.
All approve.
Okay, the next item is review and discussion of the proposed draft Joint Powers Authority Agreement for the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Sustainability Agency. I had asked our attorney, Mr. Lemieux, if he would talk to us about that.
Thank you. I'm going to go backwards a little bit to set the stage on how we got to this place. Last year, the state legislature passed a law called the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, lovingly referred to as SGMA, that requires local agencies, the formation of local agencies to manage critically overdrafted groundwater basins. Just recently, the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Basin has been designated critically overdrafted. There's a little bit of fist and glove in this. The local agency, Groundwater Sustainability Agency, I really hate the way that bureaucrats make big titles so that they have to use acronyms, but the GSA, there's kind of a fail-safe system on this. If a GSA is formed, it will manage the basin. If the local agencies cannot agree on the formation of a GSA, the county can manage the basin. If the county doesn't agree to manage the basin, the state of California will manage the basin. So in most places where I reside, the preference is to create an agency, a group of local agencies, instead of turning it over to the county to manage the basin. So there's two ways that you can, there's two kinds of GSAs that can be formed, well, maybe more than two. One is a memorandum of agreement agency, which has limited powers and which I think by most accounts is not capable of fulfilling the management functions. And then a joint powers authority. Under SGMA, the Joint Powers Authority must be made up of local agencies. Local agencies are defined as government agencies that buy, sell water, or control land use. In this valley, that would be Kern County, this city, Indian Wells Valley Water District, Inyo Kern Community Services District. I always forget the last one.
Inyo and Kern.
But did I say Inyo Kern Community Services District?
Yeah, but Inyo and Kern
Inyo County and San Bernardino.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, they're right. The two counties have little pieces of this: Inyo County and Kern County, and San Bernardino County. There's the Kern County has taken the lead in trying to create a joint powers authority for this purpose. They adopted a resolution, I'm going to say 10 days ago now, that recommended the formation of a public agency with those, a joint powers authority with those agencies. At that time, in Bakersfield, two entities came forward, the Meadowbrook Farms Mutual Water Company and another mutual water company that was created by the
Mojave Pistachios.
The Searles Mines.
Yeah, but Mojave Pistachios was the other.
Yeah, Mojave Pistachios. So perhaps there was three mutual water companies came forward and said to Kern County, we would like this joint powers authority to include mutual water companies. Now boy, I think everything I said now is really, up to now is really clear, and now it's going to get muddled a little bit. The Joint Powers Act that allows public agencies to create joint powers authorities, which we're trying to get to here, says public agencies can get together and make these authorities, but then it does something curious. It says mutual water companies can be parties to a joint powers agreement. SGMA recognizes that mutual water companies can be parties to a joint powers agreement. However, the SGMA's administrators, the Department of Water Resources, have taken the position that if a joint powers authority includes a mutual water company, then the joint powers authority, also known as a GSA, we got a JPA and a GSA doing the SGMA, will have limited powers. For that reason, Kern County has taken the position that the GSA for the Indian Wells Valley Basin should consist solely of local agencies, government agencies, local government agencies that I mentioned a moment ago. Now, it's important. I guess I'm going to have to give you a little bit about what happens after, because that should play into this decision also. After the GSA is formed, it has to do a number of things. It has to liaison with the state of California. It can only be formed after a certain amount of public meetings and so on. And then it starts to work. The basin boundary is as designated in a bulletin promulgated by the Department of Water Resources quite a number of years ago, Bulletin 118. And then there's just a lot of work to do. What is the safe yield of the basin? How much water can be taken out annualized over a long time without damaging the basin? And believe me, these things are complicated. I've been through two adjudications which had as part of their purpose determining what the safe yield of a basin is. And the safe yield trial each lasted 6 months. That's 4 days a week for 6 months. So determining safe yield is not a piece of cake. It's kind of interesting, it's fascinating, it's fun, and everybody's going to enjoy listening to it for the first 3 months, but it's a big job. Part of the the job, the GSA will be assisted in that job by some advisory committees. The advisory committees could, for example, include mutual water companies, will undoubtedly include hydrogeologists, scientists, experts in government theory, I think is the best way to put it, though I don't know anybody admits to be an expert in government theory. And hearings will be held to decide how to manage the basin. If it is true that the Indian Wells Valley Basin is overdrafted, a lot of people are going to have to take a haircut, because the only way you can balance a basin is cut back production or increase supply. Everybody in the state is looking for a way to increase supply right now. It's not saying it can't be done, but the more likely outcome is that everybody that uses the basin now will have to cut back in some equitable way. And the question now then becomes, and this is where the GSA will earn its high praise, is how can you equitably apportion the water supply among the pumpers when they all have to cut back some amount? Because that's one of the likely endpoints of this. People that pump a lot are going to be very concerned about this. Cheryl's mine is. We have some representatives of Mutual Water Company here today that I think are going to talk in a few minutes. They're concerned about this. And they'd like to be participant in the process as soon as possible. I've said that the Kern County believes the JPA should not include mutual water companies. One of the mutual water companies believes that it has a right to participate on the Joint Powers Authority as a matter of law. That's wrong. I'll give benefit of the doubt to people that are kind of near being correct, and that's just incorrect. It's a closer question whether a mutual water company, whether the GSA can do its work with its somewhat limited powers if it has a mutual water company participant. That's a legitimate thing to argue about. But tonight, the question is whether you're willing to support Kern County's efforts to create the Joint Powers Authority composed of government agencies. Now, Mayor, the gentleman representing Meadowbrook Farms, I'm probably not getting that name consistently right, but suggests that Kern County has to redo their resolution of a couple days ago, last week, for technical reasons. We should anticipate that they'll come to the same result. I guess we don't have to do that, but it was a technical redo, so I'm assuming there was no big policy change coming about. So I've talked a long time, and although I enjoyed talking, I could listen to myself talk for days, according to my wife.
So what is your recommendation to us?
Well, this is not a one-sided decision you have to make.
We understand that.
Yeah, you can't just decide, we're going to create a Joint Powers Authority and it's going to be this. Kern County's taken the laboring oar. If we fail to create a Joint Powers Authority, Kern County will manage the basin, period. There won't be a Joint Powers Authority unless, without the approval of Kern County. And they said they don't want to approve one with a mutual, so my recommendation is to approve the Joint Powers Authority without a mutual to act as the GSA, with the understanding, and this is not profound, but with the understanding that mutual water companies will be expected to participate in the process of creating a management plan, either as part of an advisory committee or some other acceptable method. We're not the Lone Ranger on this. We've got at least, whatever there was, 5 other public agencies that have opinions, and the train will leave the station with you or without you.
Okay, as I understand it then, the recommendation is to approve the JPA with, and the partners in that approval, given all of their approvals, will be Inyo County, Kern County, San Bernardino County, the Inyo Kern Community Service District, the Indian Wells Valley Water District, and the City of Ridgecrest. That's 6. The other mutuals and/or agencies that wish to participate may do so, and would be readily welcome, and the advisory committee and any other areas where they may be willing and need to serve. Is that?
That's right, and I realize I left off 2 minor players. BLM and U.S. Navy would like to participate as non-voting board members.
Yeah, ex officio, I think they call it.
Yeah, they
right?
call it ex officio. I'm not that's a federal government quirk that they don't want to have a voting power, but they want to be on the board. I guess that doesn't sound very exciting to me, but that's what it is. If this is approved and you go forward with this, it's not like tomorrow you start deciding what to do with the basin. The next thing that happens is the joint powers agreement has to be fleshed out. There are other things to deal with. It has to be fleshed out, brought back to all those agencies to approve. I would guess, I don't know, it can go fast or slow, but I don't believe the Joint Powers Authority, the Joint Powers Agreement could be ready for final approval by all the agencies much before spring, June, July, something like that. That's my guess. Because there has to be hearings, there has to be notices to the state. The state has to look at it afterwards and give approval. And I think July 1st would be an ambitious date for the inaugural meeting of the Joint Powers Authority.
Okay. Council discussion. Jim, I see you've got your hand there.
I'm still processing my thoughts. If someone else wants to speak, go
I think
ahead.
Brent wants to speak.
Who?
Brent.
Okay. Let's go through council comment first, unless you'd rather hear from the floor first. All right, please come up then. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Brent McManigal. I'm with the law firm of Gresham, Savage, Nolan, and Tilden from San Bernardino. We represent Meadowbrook Dairy and also Meadowbrook Mutual Water Company. If I may, before I say some comments, what is the action that's being done tonight? It seems like at one point there was discussion that a JPA may be approved, but is this just a directional item at this point?
I think that's a better way of putting it. All of the agencies you've heard mentioned several times they're kind of in the room saying, yeah, that's what we want to do. So we would prove in concept the Joint Powers Agreement and then flesh out the details of the agreement and bring it back for formal approval down the line.
We have already approved the avenue of a joint powers agreement as opposed to an MOU or an MOA.
Okay. And if I might say a few words, and then happy to answer any questions. And we believe this is the beginning of the process and would like to continue our dialogue here with the city. This is the beginning of a very long process, as the city attorney has said. And we'd like to have our voice and also continue these types of meetings as the process goes forward. As I mentioned, Meadowbrook Dairy and Meadowbrook Mutual Water Company is one of the larger agricultural groundwater producers in the Indian Wells Valley. Meadowbrook owns approximately 1,600 acres of land in the Indian Wells Valley, most of which is used for growing alfalfa. The property has been used since the 1970s to grow alfalfa and continues to grow alfalfa today, primarily for dairy operations. So Meadowbrook and their property has been a long-time producer of alfalfa and groundwater in this valley, and they have a very long and history that they want to continue here to cooperate with the various agencies. Meadowbrook participated and worked with Kern County on their recently approved Indian Wells Valley Land Use Management Plan. Through that plan, we were supportive. We worked with county staff, and Meadowbrook had over 300 acres of land that was rezoned out of agriculture. That's a level of commitment they have to see towards and work towards sustainable groundwater management. They've also been participating in the Indian Wells Valley Cooperative Management Group for some time, so they can understand the positions of the various agencies, lend their support, and lend their knowledge of groundwater in this area. They are supportive of groundwater sustainability, and they want to be part of the process. As the city attorney mentioned, SGMA has been around only for a short time. Everybody is grappling with this. But however, effective January 1st of this year was one of the first amendments to SGMA that was authored by Senator Pavley. That amendment specifically allows and authorizes mutual water companies to participate in the SGMA process and on GSAs. We believe the legislature saw the necessity of having all of the large groundwater producers actively participate in a meaningful way in establishing groundwater sustainability for all basins. The Sustainable Groundwater Management Act facilitates diverse participation on a GSA, and now with SB 13 that went into effect, requires mutual water companies like Meadowbrook to participate, and as well as PUC-regulated water utilities to be included in the GSA if they want to be. Meadowbrook wants to be included in the GSA and wants to be an active board member of the GSA. Senator Pavley, in a letter to the California Senate dated September 11, 2015, summed up the true meaning of SGMA. And I quote, "In short, successful implementation of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act will require coordination and collaboration by all groundwater pumpers in a basin, regardless of their ownership or organizational structure." And this is why we are talking to all of the agencies and asking for their support to include non-governmental agencies as a member of the GSA. Meadowbrook supports, as I said, supports the formation of a joint powers agency because it affords the means to create a diverse stakeholder GSA as envisioned under SGMA. Government Code Section 6525 is a part of the Joint Exercise of Powers Act since 1994, and it specifically declares, in quoting, "A mutual water company may enter into a joint powers agreement with any public agency for the purpose of jointly exercising any power common to the contracting parties." Groundwater is common to all of us, and we would like to participate as an active member of any JPA and the GSA. In closing, when read together, SGMA, SB 13, and Government Code Section 6525 establish that a mutual water company and other non-governmental organizations has the right to participate as a voting member of any JPA, and in this case, the groundwater sustainability of the Indian Wells Valley. Other GSAs are being formed as we speak in other parts of the state in the form of a JPA that include both governmental agencies and mutual water companies. Specifically, the Sacramento Groundwater Authority, JPA, been established for many, many years, been very successful. This is a goal of all of ours, especially in this valley. So we request here tonight that the City of Ridgecrest City Council affirmatively include in any resolution, direction to staff, or JPA the participation of large agricultural and mining entities who pump water in the Indian Wells Valley to be a member of the future JPA in the form of the GSA to help develop a sustainable groundwater management plan for this basin. That's what we're here to ask, and we request that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there other public comment?
Can I ask a real quick question? And this is a legal question, I guess. What defines a mutual water company?
A mutual water company is a private corporation. They can be nonprofit, but typically these days they're for-profit corporations that have the power to sell water to their shareholders only, as distinguished from a investor-owned utility, say like Golden State Water Company, that sells water to anybody and their shareholders. The mutual water company can take a great many forms. There's some really large mutual water companies in the state that may have 10,000 customers, serve 10,000 homes. There's been a mutual form for the Cerros mining interest that's just that. And I think yours is just, your mutual just serves your property, is that correct? Yeah. There's also a mutual somewhere in the valley that has, Mayor, did you say like 80 homes?
Eastern Yukon Mutual has 83.
83 homes.
Mm-hmm.
So,
now, that was a couple of years ago. There may be some change.
The mutual water company can be a lot of different things.
Okay. That helps. Thank you.
Mr. Whitnick.
Thank you. So I just want to be clear. Are we here to discuss the wording of this agreement as well?
No.
We're not?
That's just for it was a, what do we call it?
Why not?
Aren't we adopting it in principle?
We are.
What you're being asked to do is decide if you're willing to participate in the Joint Powers Authority that includes
They already did.
or does not include mutual water companies. That's perhaps the new.
Now, I'm confused here because he just said they have a right to be a voting member. I thought you said if they are a voting member, it limits it to some degree, and so they don't have a right to be a voting member.
Yeah, I don't think mutuals have a right to gain entry on the board of directors of a GSA. There's two lawyers in the room, so there's two opinions.
Yeah,
maybe there's three lawyers in the room.
If there's three lawyers in the room, there's three opinions.
Yeah, that's certainly true. Yeah, if there's three, then there's four opinions. So we disagree on whether they have a right to do it.
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, because I'm confused because the staff report says County of Kern has provided a draft joint powers of agreement to be reviewed by participating agencies. To me, that says we're reviewing the wording of this joint powers agreement.
The draft that you've got there has enough in it that's going to be changed to be not worth the effort. There's about 80% of that draft agreement that was circulated is boilerplate. It's things that when you send a notice, put it in an envelope and put a stamp on it. That kind of stuff that lawyers get paid to do. The remaining 10 or 20, 30% are critical things like how does the board of directors vote? Who's on the board of directors? How do they vote? Do they vote the same for every type of action? It has been suggested that each of those 5 or 6 agencies have one vote, and that all actions take a majority. Others have suggested that certain kinds of actions, such as say a decision to levy a pump tax. I'd call it a pump tax, but people are going to be mad at me for saying that. A decision to levy an extraction fee, how's that, would require a supernumerary vote more than a majority vote. Those things don't appear in that draft. They're very important, and nobody's going to sign the agreement until that's worked out. So as far as going through the agreement, I would say it's not in a position to be discussed. The only thing that's the hot issue tonight, I think, is mutual or not a mutual. And I'm saying 2 things on that. One is I disagree that mutual water companies have a right to participate, and so that's our disagreement here. And on whether they should be participating, I've reminded the council that the county has put out a proposal that does not include mutual water companies. So if you come back to the county and say, we want a mutual water company, it's either going to be, okay, well, don't participate, or we'll change your mind. I don't see, in talking to them, much inclination to change your mind. So if we insist on there being mutual water companies on this Joint Powers Authority, you'd have to believe that there's a likelihood that we would be invited to not be on the Joint Powers Authority.
Okay, well, just my point is that there's nothing in the agenda that said that we would be deciding about mutual water companies. There's not even a mention of that in the agenda here. And that's why the question I'm posing at this point. So what you're saying, though, is that there's going to be another agreement that this council is going to have before them that will be available for public discussion and review at a later date.
Oh, yes. But, well, if we agree with the county's prototype, that is a GSA without mutuals, then we'll have another agreement to discuss. If we don't agree to the county's prototype, then either we will be out of the process or the county will change. The county was asked to change. I don't know, Brent, if you addressed the county, but I know several lawyers addressed the county, and not as, I'm told, not as politely as they did here. But no change was made, so there you go.
Go ahead, you can answer.
If I may, City Attorney, Mayor, members of the council, I was at the Kern County Board of Supervisors hearing last week. There was no action taken because the Form JPA that was attached to the staff report was not the proper one. And like tonight, I think it's more of a discussion and no action being taken, since nothing was agendized other than for a discussion. But they will be coming back to their board, Kern County, on Tuesday. Hopefully tomorrow, the Form JPA that they wanted, County Council wanted, will be attached to the staff report this time. The one that was attached was not one that the County Council had written.
Okay, then I just have just one comment then. Since we're going to be having this again in the future for more discussion, because I do have some comments about this thing. But I do love the lawyerese in section 12.10. This is fantastic.
Remember now,
singular
Tom,
includes plural.
I didn't write this.
Whenever used in this agreement, the singular form of any term includes the plural form, and the plural form includes the singular form. I'm really glad you made that clear for us.
Yeah, and the next thing you're going to talk about Dickens and those old books about lawyers, right?
Okay, then I will defer my comment.
There is a lot of that in there, and that's why I said I think about 90, maybe 80% of that agreement just forms that make people with law degrees feel good. The real guts of it is who's on the board of directors, how are they going to vote. After that, I think I can go back to sleep.
Very good. I withhold my comments then.
Okay, is there other public comments? Mr. Matthews.
Yeah, Dave Matthews. Who actually put this together?
This was prepared by the county council.
Okay. And do
maybe I'm wrong. The county council has county council. That's a staff attorney that works from year in and year out, and they've hired two special counsel, one on the west side, one on the east side. I believe the Joint Powers Authority was created by Deputy County Counsel with the help of the East Side Special Counsel. It's a committee.
Phil Hall recreated this straw man, as he called it.
Yeah.
County Council.
County Council, basically, county.
Well, I guess my question is that do all of the potential members have a copy of this that they're reviewing, or is this something that's going to occur later?
Yeah.
Both.
Yes.
Yes.
All of the potential members do. All the public agencies identified by the county have copies.
because there's a couple of things I dug out here that, even though we're going to see this again, I think you probably ought to start thinking about them now. The intent here is to form a GSA, which, in what I remember, is a groundwater sustainability agency.
Right.
So why do we have a joint powers agreement that comes down here and talks about a groundwater authority? What's the difference between an agency and an authority? Do we need to address that?
I don't think we need to address that.
Okay. There's a couple other things that I came across, though, and I guess because this is so crude to start with, that one of my questions was already answered, because it referred to the members listed in Exhibit A, but I could not find any Exhibit A.
There won't be.
Yeah, okay.
Remember I mentioned Inyo County and San Bernardino County. I don't think anybody's clear that Inyo County is going to participate. They have just a small piece of the basin, so.
Yeah.
They voted to participate.
So they are going to participate.
Yes.
Okay.
San Bernardino
But-
said they were preparing it, and they will come back to their board.
So this is an iterative process. We throw out the straw man. Kern County throws out the straw man and says, we'd like to form a JPA along these lines. People get together saying, yeah, that's about right. We've got some comments, maybe like your comments. And then the next draft and the next draft. And along the way, things shake out as worthy of discussion. Mutual Water Company is one of those things that shook out. Another one is the possible of greater than majority vote for certain kinds of decisions. These are all laying out there, and before this city signs anything, these things are going to have to be fleshed out a little more than they are right now.
Okay, well, in the same sentence that somebody did some massaging somewhere, because in the same sentence that refers to Exhibit A, it says, and the Naval Weapons Center, China Lake. And my question there was, well, why can't you just include them in the Exhibit A? But anyway.
Yeah, that's just how things are. Remember, we're designing a camel here.
The one other thing that did concern me somewhat, though, is that somewhere in there it says the cost of operation or something to that effect shall be shared by all of the members. And I think we ought to hit up the state and make the state pay for it, because they're the ones that wants these things put into place anyway.
Well, I think you can make the argument the state's part of the problem further back than that, but please don't make approval dependent on state payment.
Okay, thank you. We'll see you next time.
Okay, Mrs. Mead?
Good evening, Mayor Breeden, council members. I've listened to what's been said here, and I agree with Meadowbrook's attorney in that the Board of Supervisors did not take a vote as to accepting or not allowing mutuals. But the Water District did. I'm not sure that you're aware of that or not, but on the 11th of January, the Board of the Water District had a discussion. They voted a 5-0 that they wanted mutuals to be represented as part of the GSA. I don't know if that helps you in your decision.
Don Zadiba sent a letter when that was made public. Somebody said that they had voted that way. I think it was from Mojave Pistachios, Mr. McLaughlin, who said that the Water District had voted that way. They said they did not. They had a consensus that they wanted it to be inclusive. They did not. The item is on the agenda for their meeting on Friday at 9 o'clock, and they have said that they will make a decision at that time.
Okay, well, I would have to disagree with Mr. Zadiba, because from where I sat, that's exactly what it sounded like to me that they were voting on, was to have the mutuals and the at-large director participate in the GSA. But again, I only mention that because it has not been talked about, and if the water district is servicing your area, then I would think you would want to follow their lead as to allowing the mutuals.
There is a difference, and that was part of the discussion. Allowing participation, encouraging participation, is different than the voting authority. And I think that's what, because I know Mr. Griffin said he wanted it to be inclusive, and there were others who agreed with that, but they were going to discuss it and vote on it at the Friday meeting. Now, that's what I understood, and that's what I saw, and Don Zadiba sent a letter saying, correcting, I think, Mr. McLaughlin, I think it's him, if I've attributed it to him incorrectly, my apologies, that they did not vote on that.
Well, again, I think that probably that's a...
I don't want to...
Yeah, we'll agree to
Yeah.
disagree on what was said, but, I mean, just from
I understand.
sitting in the audience, just like sitting here, we, on this side, we may hear things a little differently than what you're hearing them up here, but...
Yeah, any water user, any pumper that has enough money in the bank can make themselves into a mutual water company. And that means any corporation can have just as much say, if it's correct that mutual water companies can force their way onto the governing board, then each person that goes through that effort can be on the governing board and have as much vote as any of the government agencies will have in this area. Now, not everybody trusts government, but not everybody trusts corporate America either. We're not a very trusting nation right now. That's part of the rationale, I believe, for SGMA is to not require mutual water companies to be on the board of directors. It's not being inclusive or uninclusive. The water district serves a lot of people. The Inyo Kern Community Services District serves a lot of people. This agency, the city, serves really nobody with water, but has land use responsibility, which brings something different to the table. And that's why SGMA is limited to local governmental agencies that serve water or have land use powers.
I agree with you, Mr. Lemieux, in what you're saying, with the exception of there's not a lot of mutuals out there asking to be on the GSA. There are 3 of them that are asking, and they're all substantial water users. I think that is the difference.
Maybe I made myself, I was not clear. What I was saying is any substantial water user can make itself into a mutual water company, and if the theory that the mutuals have a right to be on the board, any substantial water user can get on the board of directors and direct the course of groundwater management. SGMA, I think SGMA is a terrible idea. Let's get there first.
I think everybody does.
Yeah, but I'm not here to tell you what ought to be. I'm here to tell you what is. SGMA is. There's going to be a groundwater management agency managing the Indian Wells Valley Basin. That agency is going to exercise governmental powers akin to planning. I think the best analogy here is this basin is going to be managed the way land use is managed by the county and the city with planning and zoning laws. That's a new way of doing things. I don't think that's a better way, but that's what's going to happen here. Now, the question is whether this city or even the water district wants to be party to it or not. And, I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about. We're not talking about anything more specific than that.
Mr. Lemieux, do I understand that the state has told us if you don't do it, we will?
Well, they said if you don't form a joint powers authority, more than that, but basically that, the county will do it. And if the county doesn't want to do it, we'll do it.
Isn't it a GSA rather than a joint powers? They're not saying you have to have a joint powers.
They're not saying you have to have a joint powers, but a joint powers is a way to exercise all of the management functions. And
Right, but the state says you just have to have a groundwater sustainability agency.
you have to manage the basin. If you bring in an agency that lacks the powers to manage the basin, they'll kick it back and say, do it again.
I agree. I agree with you there. They have to accept it,
Yes.
but the valley has to be the one that creates it. And the eligible agencies are the ones that have the first say-so. And if they don't get it right, the courts are going to have the final say-so.
The three
Not-
counties
not
can
even
end
the
up
state.
forming the JPA if the locals don't get on board.
Thank you.
There's a lot of outcomes here. That kind of makes the discussion interesting.
Yeah, more than interesting.
Mrs. Merck?
Thank you. Sophia Merck. I came here tonight because I wanted to listen to what you guys had to say about the GSA and the JPA. And it was my impression that last time you met that you guys agreed that the JPA was the vehicle to use. And that was the way I left the meeting. Tonight, I wasn't sure what you meant by the agenda, because to me it's not agendized properly. I would like to see better words for the public to understand what you guys are going to be talking about. Transparency is also a part of the GSA. And for that purpose, I would like to see in the future the agenda to reflect more transparency on what you're actually asking for. Thank you. My letter is on file here. I support the JPA. I also support the fact that there is another mutual that wanted to be part of it, and that was the Searles Lake. They have a water company, and they have substantial water users that do use the water from this valley. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there other public comment? Mr. Rotora.
Good evening again. Stan Rotora, still.
You haven't changed your name?
No, I haven't, and I'm not planning on doing that either in the near future. Tonight is the first time that I've heard any comment from anybody about if there was a mutual water company in a GSA, that it would be a limited authority GSA. And I was hoping to get a better definition or description of what the limits of that GSA would be compared with a GSA that didn't have a mutual. Because in my mind, that's important.
Yes.
Or it certainly could be important.
I've got the act here. There's 7 different laws that were adopted, and our friends in Sacramento at the Department of Water Resources have been pushing out regulations and bulletins one after another. I doubt that I can answer that question for you in a way that would give you enough information. I can say when there's a mutual water company in the JPA, JSA, it has less than full powers. I'll look at that. I'll look through my folder here while you're standing there, but I don't despair of giving you an answer.
Yeah, I would appreciate it. It seems to me that's important because, quite frankly, I don't support trying to keep out large water users. My feeling is we need to be inclusive, and anybody that uses as much water as some of those use, they're a major part of the problem, and therefore my feeling is they need to feel that they're going to have to be a major part of the solution.
They have to be. They have to participate. But the question we're talking about with the GSA is, do they get a vote? Are they able to veto the management plan created by the GSA by the sheer numbers? Because there could be hundreds of them.
Well, I think has already been pointed out. There's only 2 or 3 that even have requested to be on the GSA, and I expect the farmers specifically. I expect the farmers to share in the cost of any solution. Well, I personally don't expect that. If I expect them to be a major factor in paying for this, I feel they'd have a right to figure out as well how it should be done. But I think I've heard in the past that the GSA requires some kind of California approval, and I don't know if it's a DWR or whatever. But I've also been told, and of course you hear a lot of stuff, so you got to be careful what to believe. But that one of the factors in whether that's going to be approved is whether or not the design of the GSA is really inclusive or not. And if that's the case, it seems to me that going out of our way to keep a large water user out of the GSA is actually just backwards from what the intent of what was intended for the GSA. And frankly, I think it's cutting our own throats if we try to keep the municipal water districts out. It only takes one person to start a court claim, okay, or go to court. And I think adjudication is the absolute last thing our valley needs. If we go in that route, we're going to be hung up for years and years and years. And frankly, I think, who knows? We may not win. All right? So I think, and that's why my feeling is it's really important to understand what was said earlier with regard to limiting the authority of the GSA. If indeed there is something that says the GSA doesn't have certain rights or authorities, if they do include, then I'd be very willing to look at it and maybe change my mind. But for right now, not knowing what is stated there, my feeling is that the city should just not take any type of action, just remind the county that we have already stated that we want to be a member of a GSA, and we're willing to discuss any and all aspects of the GSA, but it's just too early to try to exclude anybody, in my mind.
Some of the representatives of the mutual water companies that, I don't think, Brent, you're in this category, maybe you are, but take the position that not only do they have the right to be on the GSA, but their water rights are paramount. And I'm talking about overlying rights of some farmers. That's what causes the groundwater cases. If those people that take that position have a member are on the governing board of the GSA will not create a groundwater management plan.
Well, I guess my feeling is anything that we can do to avoid going into adjudication, we should really look very seriously at doing that. Because I don't think any of us, I haven't personally been involved in adjudication. Anybody I've talked to, however, that has ever been involved with it, say it's not nice.
Yes, well,
everybody gets hurt, well, with the exception of the lawyers, perhaps.
Some of the lawyers get hurt.
And so we really don't want that. So my feeling is we need to bend over backwards to really think this through hard before we go along with the county so-called prototype.
There won't be an adjudication here. There'll be litigation, but there won't be an adjudication. There's the groundwater, the SGMA is set up in such a way for basins like this as to absolutely, there's no reason to adjudicate. Nobody can gain anything by adjudicating. The whole game is the GSA. That's where you better pay attention, because if you don't, whatever you don't get from the GSA, you're not going to get from the court. So
litigation is not something we need either. We already
hey,
pay, this city already pays too much money in legal fees. We don't need another court case. If we can avoid any kind of a court case, we should try to do that. With regard to the county's prototype, I think there's one person over there that is pushing for that particular prototype. He's up for election next November. If we really don't want it, it's easy enough to get rid of that prototype. So I think we really need to sit back and think seriously about the consequences of our action before we start trying to exclude people who think they have a right to certain water, because it could backfire on us real easily. I'm not a lawyer. I haven't actually read the water laws, but going ahead and voting tonight to say we're going to go along with this prototype before we really understand what it means, I think would be doing ourselves a disservice. And did you find anything by the way
it's
that
in
says
here,
what that limited?
I've got 100 pages here, so.
Oh, you probably didn't get through all that then. Okay.
No, not yet.
Well, I would be interested, rather than just saying it provides a limited powers, GSA, it'd be nice to know specifically what powers are retained if they let the municipal water district.
I can speculate. Non-governmental agencies don't have police powers. Private corporations don't have police powers. So if you've got an entity that has a private corporation on the governing board, you can see how the governing board will not have the ability to make police power regulations. These management plans need to be enforced by police powers. You need to be able to say, you can't pump today, or you got to pump 10% less, or you got to pay 5% more for pumping. If you don't have that, the basin won't be managed. It'll be the way it is. It might be fine, but it won't change unless you have an entity with governmental powers.
I'm sure that the state of California would not have suggested that we be inclusive and that they could be emitted. I'm not saying that they're required to be put in, but even being allowed through a vote of the agencies come in. There had to have been a reason for the state to say that could be done, and all I'm saying is I think we need to think very seriously before we try to get too high-handed about trying to exclude anybody that's a major player in our valley.
There's a lot of stuff about inclusiveness in SGMA, mainly in the part about advisory committees and advisory commissions. There's a lot of ways to be inclusive without being on the board of directors.
Don't disagree.
Okay. And,
I'm not sure it means anything, but I don't disagree.
Farmers don't do badly under the current system. Governor Brown didn't put the drought regulations on the farmers. There was a good reason for that. Most lawsuits, when they're settled, the farmers don't have the primary rights, yet they do all right. So if anybody that comes to the table and makes a clear position in some of these negotiations over management, usually they'll do all right. The question is, some farmers are saying, we're number one. We get to decide, and what we decide you can have, you can have. That's not going to make it. Overlying rights are not prior and paramount to everybody else's rights.
Well, my concern is that the city does all right and the water district does all right. I'm more than happy to let the farmers be all right. So I think we need to think through before we start letting something that came out of one person over in Bakersfield start dictating what we want to do. He's our elected official. We can't unelect him. We don't have to re-elect him. Thank you.
Mrs. Mead?
Elaine Mead. I have a question for Mr. Lemieux, if you don't mind, Mayor Breeden.
No, please.
If, how do I put this? The Navy wants to sit on the board of directors as a non-voting member, and that seems to be okay with the agencies that have spoken up. Why couldn't the mutuals sit on the board non-voting?
That's not what they're asking.
Well, I didn't say they were asked what they were asking for. I'm asking a question. Could they? And would that diminish the powers that you're speaking of for the JPA? Also, if the Navy, does the Navy have police power?
Oh, yeah.
So,
Airplanes, too.
They got
no,
bombs.
that's not my question. I'm trying to be serious.
I can't answer your question because I haven't thought about it.
Does the Navy diminish the power of a JPA?
Does the Navy? The Navy is a public agency.
No, they're not a public agency.
Yes, they are.
The Navy is a public agency? No, they're not an elected agency.
They're a government agency. Federal government.
I know they're a government agency.
The United States of America is a public agency. Microphone.
Okay, so
The United States of America is a public agency, and the Navy is a branch of that.
so the Navy does not diminish the powers of a JPA.
I can't see how they would. Voting or not voting.
Then why would they want to take a non-voting position?
That's a. This town has a lot of experience with the Navy making decisions that are sometimes difficult to understand. That's
Okay.
what they said they wanted.
Okay, so, and I understand our supervisor asked that the Navy be included so that he can bring their expertise and their funding to the table.
Not only the Navy, Bureau of Land Management as well, and both those federal agencies have some. There's a statute that makes it difficult for them to participate in these kinds of ventures if they can vote.
Okay.
So I think they're just trying to be helpful. I'm not sure about that statute. That's their problem, not mine.
I haven't heard the BLM talked about very much, but I did hear the Navy. So I guess my question to this board would be if the Navy sits at the table and because of their expertise and their funding, why wouldn't the three mutuals be able to sit at the table because of their expertise and their funding? Because they all three have the same ability.
Mayor, Council, I'll look into that. I think you're asking why can't a mutual be a non-voting member of the Board of Directors?
Well, I'm
And I'll
just
look
asking,
into-
and
I'll
I
look
don't
into
know that they would accept that, but I'm just saying, has any of the eligible agencies sat back and said, well, we can't do what you're asking, but we could do this, where they're offered something besides an advisory position? That's.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think one of the things that while there are only currently 3 mutuals, allowing that could create hundreds of mutuals that would then be allowed to come to the table, which tips the balance. And that's what I think some of the concern that you're hearing is, because then we have to look at the number we would put on it, what kind of precedent that sets, so on and so forth. At least in my mind, that's how I see it, because mutuals aren't limited. It's not exclusive to just the 3 that we currently have. So that is something to be taken into account. I think the other thing that people may not be looking at, or maybe looking at, that I know is a subject that does need to be discussed. And when it comes to this, is the fact that those who are sitting on that are a voting member are elected positions, which means the public can change the makeup by election in order to make it balanced and fair. You cannot do that with a mutual. So that is the other option that people, or other avenue, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but that's the other thing that we need to be looking at. Because this is something for the public's best interest, yes, and we are elected officials, which means at any time we can not be elected officials, and that changes that. And that's a very, very important factor when it comes to that, especially when there is land involved as well.
I agree with you, Lori, and I think from what I've heard and what I've studied the Sigma law a lot from the very beginning, and I think that there are not handfuls. There's not 5 mutuals in this valley that are going to want to step up to the plate and be a participant, because they're not going to want to come up with any money. And if you can't have representation unless you're carrying part of the bill. So to say that there's going to be this flood of mutuals wanting to be a part of it is naive.
Possible.
I didn't say there was going to be. I said there could be a possibility. Do I think that's going to happen? No. But it does open that doorway. And we do have to be cognizant of that, because that is our responsibility.
You also have to remember that the county did away with a lot of zoning that's going to do away with any water-intensive activities that's going to create that. So I'm just asking the board to look broadly. Don't go into this with tunnel vision. There's a lot of different ways to solve the problem, and that's what we need to look at.
Did you want to speak, Mike?
I want to make a proposal after everybody's done talking.
Okay, well,
Did you have another question, Peggy?
No, ma'am, I don't. Not for you right now.
All right.
I think one of the things that we have to look at is that the mutuals have not made that proposal. When and if they make a proposal that says they are willing to come in and work and be a part of the governing agency that does not give them a vote, doesn't mean they're any less worthy or any different, except that they don't have the responsibility to anybody but themselves. When you, as a mutual, make your choices are made on what your best self-interest is. It may indeed be what is the best interest for everybody in a given situation. But overall, just like when the city makes a vote, it is what is best for us, not what is best for everybody, even though it may be, and hopefully it can be. I've been attending these meetings since 1983, water meetings. I don't think I've missed very many of them. And these last few have been these last year have been very contentious and very defining of positions. And there isn't anybody who lives in this valley who doesn't recognize that we must work together. I don't want to argue what the water district did, because I want to be inclusive. I want everybody to participate. Do I want everybody to vote? I'm going to have to say I don't think so. And the reason being is that Searles Valley Minerals is, by nature, they are going to vote. By their stockholders are going to tell them, you will vote the way we tell you to vote because it's in our best interests. It is what we do. Mojave Pistachios and Meadowbrook Farms, great entities. I have no No, I don't think for a minute that you're there to take all the water out of this valley and destroy us all. It's foolish to think you would. You are business people. You are going to do what is best for your business. It is not logical to think that you're going to say, you know what, I'm going to charge myself $5 million. You're not going to. Now, are we going to charge ourselves $5 million? No. But we do vote in our own best self-interest. The Navy has said they want to be a part of it. They do not choose to vote given their position. BLM has indicated that they feel the same way. I think it is not impossible to have those mutuals on there giving their expertise, their money, just like everybody else is going to have to do, and be a part of the solution because you are, as we are, part of the problem. Now, how do we do that? That will be not what we're discussing tonight. We are asking tonight for an idea of voting the way it is. Does that mean it can't be changed? I don't think so. Are we locked into it? We are locked into, if we vote this until we change, that we would want to do it with the 6 entities that have been named with a vote. Simple as that. Does that mean everybody else is worthless and not wanted and needed? Absolutely not. Does that mean we all need to work together to find the solutions? Yes. How we do that has not yet been defined. I see Tim Fox.
Hi. Tim Fox, Knowledge China Lake. So I just wanted to say that our legal counsel is telling us that we cannot vote on the board of a public agency. They're telling us, and I'm not an attorney, so I'll do my best to kind of explain what they've told me, but it creates a conflict of interest. As a Navy employee, we should not be voting on public policy decisions. So we participate in boards on an advisory basis, like the current COG. We're an ex officio member of that through an MOU. But as far as participating in a public agency in a voting membership, we're told we cannot do that. So wanted to add that.
Thank you, Tim. Is there any questions for Tim? Thank you.
I'd just like to say my piece now.
Please.
We've heard some conflicting things here tonight, and some of them we don't know the answers to. There was argument about whether the water district did this or whether they did that. There was an indication by the attorney back here that the county had the wrong one. Do we have the right one?
We do.
Okay. So
the county presented Meadowbrooks. Yes, not Meadowbrook. Mojave Pistachios. They presented theirs. They attached it to the agenda. The wrong.
Oh, so they
wrong
attached,
one.
they attached theirs, not the county's. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to vote on this tonight. If the county's going to vote on theirs, and I think we need to find out. I don't want the state to control the water here. I don't want the county alone to control the water here. So whatever it takes in order for us to have a voice in it, I'm in favor of. But I think we can wait until next meeting. I'd like to postpone this item until next meeting. Then we'll know for sure what the water district did. We'll know sure what the county did, and then we can proceed forward. But I don't think we're voting. I don't see a conflict in the proposal. It says review and discuss the proposed joint powers authority agreement for the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Sustainability Agency. That to me indicates that we can take action on it, but some people in the audience disagree with that. So if it needs to be worded a little differently on the next meeting, then so be it. But I would propose that we postpone it to the next meeting. Then we can clear up a few of these things. And maybe we can have an answer as to how that would affect it. But yeah, I agree with Lori. I think the voting members ought to be the elected officials.
Mr. Lemieux, will you be able to be here at the next council meeting?
I don't know, but I know that putting it off it's not, putting it off isn't going to be the end of the world here. We can find, that's fine, we'll do that.
Yeah.
If I can come to the next meeting, I will. I suspect by having 2 weeks to get back into this, we can have the opportunity to create some reports. Keith is not here tonight because he's meeting with the people forming the water master for the Antelope Valley groundwater basin. It's kind of an associated thing. So he's very up on this stuff. So if I've got a conflict, we can get him in here to do this.
I'm not sure the reason the county would like a decision, because every time I have made comments representing the city at these meetings, I have said, this is Peggy Breeden speaking, or the city has done this. We need to come to a point where somebody will say they are representing the city. Obviously, I would like to do that, but I will take direction from any of you what you think about that.
Well, by not taking action, you have not rejected the county's proposal.
We have not.
Okay. I'll tell the county council what's going on.
Okay?
And then they're going to formally vote on this next week.
Yes,
And the water district's going to formally vote on this Friday.
on Friday.
So by our next meeting, we will know what's going on.
We might.
We might. Or they might postpone it.
That's right.
So anyway, does that need to be a motion? If it needs to be a motion, I make a motion, we postpone this to the next meeting.
I'm good with that, but I would like to say a few things as well.
Please.
I don't want to interrupt, though.
I'm done.
Okay. So yeah, I kind of agree with one of the points that was brought up, that this probably wasn't agendized right. I came prepared to discuss the details of the agreement. So, I mean, and that's not a big deal, but I'm just, for future notice, we should probably put in the purpose of the discussion, or the context that we were trying to discuss. It would be helpful to me, and I'm sure helpful to the public.
Jim, get it a little closer to you.
There we go.
I can hear
Is
you,
that
but
better?
I know they can't.
Okay.
Usually the item has a suggested motion, and this does not have a suggested motion.
Yeah. So let's see here. So one of the big things that I would like, that is firm in my mind, is that this joint powers agreement is in essence forming a government entity. One of the very principles of government in the United States of America is we are governed by ourselves, and this is no different. It should be no different. And having a company as a voting member is abandoning that principle in my mind. I can't accept the idea of a company making a decision for me as a government, as part of a government. You'd never send a company to Congress as a voting member. You'd never put a company up here on the dais for the city council. So that in my mind is very wrong, because you can't get rid of that person. Like Lori already mentioned, an elected official, if you don't like what I do on the GSA and I'm appointed by the city council, by golly, don't elect me. And it is that easy. You could even do a recall election and kick me out as soon as you possibly can. But you can't do that with a company. So, however, I think having them participate is absolutely valuable. And I love the idea, Ms. Mead, of having them as non-voting members. I think that's a great idea, because they can sit at the table at every meeting and give valuable insight at every meeting. And I think that'd be a good thing to do. So I think I've said everything I need. And we can't really address this tonight, but one of the questions I had from studying the agreement is special activities are very undefined. I have no idea what that means. And I think, Mr. Lemieux, you kind of hit on that as well. So that'll be defined, you think, in the future?
This kind of mandates that we bring back the agreement next time in a more completed form rather than, here's a draft agreement, what do you think, and flesh it out as we go along. But when we finally get to that, we'll prepare a staff report that says this is paragraph 5 means this, paragraph 6 means that. It's going to be hard to, Mr. Matthews always comes up with some great questions that we haven't anticipated. So I'm not sure we're going to get them all, but we'll try to give you a staff report that explains most of what's in there. A lot of it is kind of pretty obvious.
Sounds good. So, okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Lori, any more? Eddie, you've been very quiet.
I think we've beat this horse pretty good.
Okay, so we had a motion, and do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Eddie. Postpone this to the next meeting.
Okay, motion to postpone. Councilmember Mauer.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Mayor Breeden.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Acton.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sanders.
Aye.
All approve?
Okay.
We have some people that would like to take a break for 2 minutes. Can we do a 2-minute break? All right, maybe 3. Yeah, go. and I have learned a lot from all of you. Okay, the next item, discussion of the joint, approve a letter of support for alternative number 3 of the West Mojave Plan WEMO Route Network Project and Plan Amendment. And Councilman Maurer.
Yeah, you guys put me on the Quad State thing, and then this landed in my lap. So, Steve, you want to come up? You can probably fill in some. And Lori, I think you probably know more than me because you've been going to the meetings. But they've extended the time to, I think it's the 26th. Is that right? 25th. So that's why I asked to have this put on the agenda, because we need to vote on this right away. And apparently from discussing it, alternative 3 is the one recommended by Quad States, and Steve has reviewed it, and he's recommending number 3 also. So I'm proposing that we write a letter to BLM. Pardon? that we support alternative 3 on the WEMO.
You did get this, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good.
Do you have any comments you want to make, Steve?
I will be more than happy to defer to Lori if she would like to go through the brief presentation. And then I have a couple comments that I would like to make if you're so inclined.
Okay. So I know everybody has heard me talk about WEMO, and this came up, and then the DRECP, which then was passed before WEMO, and WEMO is still accepting written comments. Just FYI, I did submit comments in favor of 3, but as myself as Vice Mayor, but not on behalf of the city. So if you could advance the slide for me, Matt. So here's the basic timeline of how WEMO came about, or where we're at, basically. So the route designation came into place. The West Mojave Plan incorporating the 2003 designations, what happened in 2006. In 2011, the U.S. District Court orders redesignation of the routes. In March through June, the first public comment period, and then we had the second comment period for the draft EIS. And then we're supposed to have a record of decision in November of this year. So for the background, for those who don't know, on the route designation, there was a lawsuit brought against BLM. Quit laughing over there. About a long time ago. This stems from about 20 years. And basically it was because the routes weren't designated or they weren't clear. Basically, if it's not signed, it's closed, and people didn't understand that, hence all the closed signs going up that people thought they closed a ton of new routes. Not necessarily, but they did sign them. So, next slide. So, if you take a look at the map, the reason that this affects us is a couple of them. One has to do with the potential CAPA, which we'll talk about later, but basically that's an agreement that the city hopefully can take the lead on because BLM cannot, and that will happen in the El Pasos. And because of our tourism, our off-road racing, dollars coming into our valley, okay? And it also affects our constituents. If your tires go off the pavement into the dirt, guess what? You've just become off-highway. And that affects you. Whether you're bird hunting, whether you're rock hounding, whether you're on a motorcycle, you're in a four-wheel drive, if you're mountain biking, if you're riding a horse, this affects you. And it affects all of us. So this is kind of how the lands are laid out currently. Next slide. The field offices in the area affect Barstow and Ridgecrest. And you can see Needles and Palm Springs. But the majority of the land is the land that we currently use, or those coming up from LA who spend a lot of money up here use. Next. Here's the different plan layout. In a nutshell, the reason we like number 3 is it kind of says, here's 10,000 miles, we're going to increase it, and this is what we want for the area. The problem we were having is getting it designated inside of and making the DRECP accept it before they passed the DRECP, or finaled it, I should say. So if you look at the alternatives, number 1, in the management travel areas, no change. Number 2, let's see. It's been a while since I've looked at this. So it's unchanged. There's decrease, there's increase, and then there is the network as designated. Oh, no preset limit on number 4. But we like number 3 because it does give you multiple options to get to the same routes that the public has worked very, very hard on. So if there are 3 ways to get to a favorite site, we may only use, or BLM may only use, one of those routes, but then what it didn't account for was that on Route 2, well, then there was another site on the way to that end site you were going to. I know I'm not explaining this well, but I'm trying. So it is one of those where you want to have all 3 of the routes, and that's where we get that in the preferred access in number 3, because it does up the amount of trails. And it's not because we just want so much more riding, but we do want those extra trails in there because it does pass something along the way. So it doesn't say if you're getting from point A to point C, you want to go by B, you can. And otherwise, it was just a straight shot from A to C. I'm not sure if I'm explaining that very, very well. I know it when I'm out there, but I'm not sure I'm explaining it well. So that is the reason that we all preferred number 3, and the BLM actually liked number 3 as well. So they seemed okay with that. And Matt, there we go. So the miles closed, as you can see on the chart, miles not designated, miles open, which is the narrow width is your single track or your motorcycles. Otherwise, it's a non-motorized. As you can see in the preferred access, you've got 10,000 miles available, which is, again, twice what we have now. But that allows for the multiple ways to get to destinations, I should say. So, and it also closes I would say it closes the least amount, but that's not exactly accurate. But it does designate them all. It leaves us a lot of trails open. It also leaves us a lot of options. So that's the reason we like number 3, because it does go up to the 10,000 miles, which gives us better access to sites, allows us to still go by some sites that previously we weren't going to be able to go by because we just could go from A to C with no stop at B, in a nutshell. I think that's about accurate.
Matt, if you'll go to the next slide, please. This is not a very good representation, but unless you've actually opened up the West Mojave Plan and you've looked and read through each individual route that they have proposed to be open, it'll be a little clearer. Look at that page right there, and you can see the green lines. That is the current proposal. Matt, go to the next slide. Can you see how much more green there is? Okay, that's it in a nutshell for us. All right? Now,
Can you go back and show those 2? Because I didn't see the difference in a nutshell. Okay, there's that. Okay.
Do you see the green lines?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, so this is kind of, you're dancing with the devil who's bringing the music, all right? I've been involved with this since approximately the year 2000. And I attended a lot of meetings down in Victorville with then Supervisor McQuiston and Supervisor Maben and the representatives from the city of Lancaster. And I met Jerry Hillier there representing others. And Quad State did make comments on the networking and the routing. And the reason why the court made the decision they did, making them go back and look again, was because of the multitude of comments that were made. And yes, there were some entities, I do not believe the city of Ridgecrest was one of them, but there were entities that sued, and they had every right to do so. We have hope that this alternative will go through. As Lori has said, the BLM is in favor of it. You'll note that some of the things that we talked about in the past, the motorcycle routes are less, so you can see, in the comparison page, but the motorcycles can use the OHV routes. All right? So there's less designated for motorcycles in mileage, but motorcycles will have a larger opportunity to off-road. You'll note that the non-motorized has increased, and that was important to a lot of folks, the hikers and the equestrian. All right? So this actually does address that, which made me very happy when I went back through this and looked at it. There are some issues. There always will be, unfortunately. But one of the things I wanted to emphasize, and I don't know if you have this documentation from the alternative narrative. Alternative 3 eliminates the parameter for route designation in the CDCA plan that limits route designations to those routes existing in 1980. And if you have followed this process, you know that there's a RS 2477 routing designations. And we have been fighting this from the beginning because this whole route network was based upon from 1980 to present. And they ignored all routes before that. They just flat ignored it. This eliminates that. And that's very, very important.
Well, yeah, I remember when I was in the council back in the 80s, the BLM came before us, and they said, well, we're not taking any roads away because we don't recognize these as roads.
Bingo.
And that's
Right.
that was the mid-'80s or...
Exactly, Mike. Exactly.
So does this recognize these as roads now?
It does not recognize RS 2477, but it's a step in the right direction. Okay?
So Steve?
Yes.
The biggest, when you said the term of dancing with the devil, what is the biggest problem that you faced?
If I sent a memo that the major complaint that we have as a city, in my opinion, that I would like to see expressed, even though it doesn't deal directly with the route network, okay? But I believe this statement should be within the city's body of the letter. I have argued for all of us, and others have argued as well, there has to be a no net loss statement in this document. And what do I mean by that? If you had been sitting in those meetings with 30 people, and you had the environmental lobby and the tortoise people and the Lane Mountain Milk Fetch weed people, and you had the BLM and you had the cities, and we just argued constantly. But there was no designation of this is the plan, this is the rule, and we're going to have to go back to everybody if we want to make changes. The problem with this is that environmentally, if someone comes out and says, well, you know what? The three-toed sloth has habitat over here now in the desert. We've never seen one, but it's habitat. They can take more away by going through not a fair process. So there is no provision that I have found that once this plan is approved in total, there is not a security for that no net loss. And I would like to see the city at least mention that in their letter. As part of our survival, economically speaking, it's not only to finalize this route network, which I think Alternative 3 is our best solution. Not perfect, but the best. I believe that no net loss statement for the city of Ridgecrest, where if modifications are going to be made, they have to come and speak to us personally, and they have to justify, besides the comment, best available science. I think I hate that phrase the most, because that just proves they don't know what they're talking about. Because that's their fallback. Well, it's the best available science. Mr. Parsons and I met with a state official while I was still on council. We walked the city of Ridgecrest. This is how bad it is. We walked the city of Ridgecrest and the open and undeveloped lots within our city. Now, this is when they were talking about creating a 20-to-1 mitigation for any development. And they wanted to do that not only out in the West Mojave Plan outside of the city borders, they wanted to do it inside the city borders. And the only thing we could get that person to state was, well, it looks like habitat. Well, that could be habitat. It's a dangerous game. And we have to be ever watchful, which, by the way, I want to thank you for continuing with Quad State. I wish the county would do so as well, but that's a different subject. With that said, I would be happy to answer any more questions for you, but this is the best I think we could have gotten, and I think it's the best alternative for the city, and I ask that you consider sending a letter of recommendation.
The letter would include the approval of the recommendation, the approval of alternative 3. You would ask for the net.
I would ask that a statement from a concern of the city of Ridgecrest remains that there is no net loss provision within this documentation to protect the decisions being made against further attempts to lessen the amount of access that we require as part of our economic development for this community for off-road vehicle use.
I can add that for every, at least for the truck races, every team that comes in for every truck, on average, and I have the data, they spend $5,000 per team, and we have about 200 trucks that enter the races on a weekend. So it is a huge, huge impact. If you think they're all just out camping and not spending money in town, that is grossly understated. And we worked very hard to get things like tech in town. I know this last Snore Score races that one of the hotels actually contributed prize money and stuff like that. But they dropped $5,000 a team.
Even if they're just out camping, they're buying propane.
That's right. They're doing all kinds of stuff out there. So, but it is huge to our economy, and we can suffer a hit on it. So it's important. Not to mention just to our quality of life.
I also do wish to thank Councilmember Maurer for understanding just how vital this was in getting this on the agenda tonight, sir. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for the suggestion.
So do we have any other discussion from council? Any other discussion from the public?
Sophia Merck, Sam, I think the city really needs to look at WeMo. A large part of our population uses the desert. And also, when you have alternative routes, like Lori was saying, you might have 3 routes going to one place. But sometimes it does rain in the desert, and you can't use one of those routes. So there's a place in just outside of Trona, Homewood Canyon. When the road is washed out, they have to use one of these roads, one of these off-road roads. And it's considered an RS 2477 route. However, it keeps being diminished from time to time. So like Mr. Morgan said, the no net loss is a really good statement to put in there. And also recognizing RS 2477 rights, because a lot of our utility people use these routes, and they are considered RS 2477 routes. So thank you very much for putting this on the agenda. Thank you very much for considering this, and look forward to working with you the next year.
Okay, is there a motion then? Oh, I guess we'd have a more public comment.
Gotta beat it to do it for me. We're pretty good.
Yes, Dave Matthews. Lori, I want to thank you for putting this on, or whoever it was, Mike, whoever. I completely blew it this evening. I didn't even notice that it was on the agenda, so I didn't really get to prepare any comments. But I just reminded Mr. Morgan that it was actually in the late 90s that we got started with this WEMO process. So it's about time it comes to fruition, and I will trust Lori's judgment here. I think I didn't look at all the alternatives that much. It's just that after 20 years, you know, you kind of get weary, I mean. And anyway, I agree that the statement ought to go in there. That lets them know how we feel around here. So thank you.
Okay, any other public comment? Okay, motion?
I would make a motion that we approve a letter of support for alternative number 3 of the West Mojave Plan, WEMO, and put in it a no net loss statement to that effect, that we would request that they have a no net loss clause in the thing.
I would second that.
Councilmember Maurer?
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas?
Aye.
Mayor Braden?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Acton?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Sanders?
Aye.
All approve.
Okay, the next item is committee reports. The first committee report is City Org and Services Committee, Lori and Mike.
That conflicts with next week, doesn't it?
We actually have been on hiatus, and we do not have anything on an agenda, so we are not scheduled to meet.
Good, because it conflicts
Because
with
you're going to
the county.
the State of the County meeting. Okay. Infrastructure,
That
Jim
means-
and Mike.
That meets tomorrow, and Peggy's going to take my spot at it because I'm going to go over to Kern Cog.
Okay. If I could turn the page. The next meeting is the ad hoc water committee meeting, and Jim, did you want to talk about when we're moving that to?
Yeah, we still need to, we postponed it because of the reception for former Governor Pete Wilson. So it was the 25th. We're now going to move it. So I was hoping maybe, Peggy, you and I could have a talk here about what day would be good for you.
I originally had it, I thought when we talked about moving it, I had it for the 22nd.
The 22nd. I was thinking that was kind of far away. We haven't met for so long anyways. I was going to see if we could move it up to...
Well, we have a water district meeting on the 8th. I mean, we can move it if we're trying to keep it on Monday. That's good. I can, whatever. You tell me.
I just wanted to have it sooner. I didn't care what day it's on. I mean, we could still do the 22nd. It doesn't matter. We haven't met for like 3 months. I think so. 2 months?
Yeah, you were
Okay.
at that last one.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I haven't met.
Because of the holidays, Martin Luther King and
Yeah.
and then the other holiday, whatever it was.
Right.
Well, now the 15th we can't do it because that's and on the 8th is Water District, so they won't be able to
Yeah.
come.
Right.
So we either do it the 1st or the 22nd if we stay on Mondays, or the 29th.
Is the 1st open for you? The 1st would work for me.
Yes.
Okay.
Is that room available? We need to look. Okay.
Yeah, Karen sent me a list of meetings in that room in February, and I think that is available. So I'll double check with her, and
Okay.
we'll set it for the February 1st.
So ad hoc at 5 o'clock? Is
5
that
a.m. Yep.
Okay.
5 p.m.
On the 1st. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Parks, Rec, and Quality of Life, Eddie and Lori.
We haven't met, but we are going to start meeting, and as soon as I have that information, I will let you know because we're discussing TAP funds and some other stuff, so we're going to start back up soon.
Ad hoc Youth Advisory.
Yes, the youth met, and then on January 18th, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., they did some gardening, and they did the cleaning of debris, trash in the garden, and made a rock path. So youth did some service work around the community, or around here.
In the city?
Yes.
That garden? Wonderful. Okay, RACVB. Eddie or Lori, whoever's got that? I think you attended, Eddie, right?
Yeah, Lori's going to read it.
Okay.
I am.
Here, you want to?
Oh, that's just, I forgot we haven't met. This is so long. So Vicki Sykes is back as a board of director. We know about the State of the County dinner. The RACVB will be going to the 3rd Annual Travel and Adventure Show in San Diego. The Kern County 150th Birthday Bash will be held April 16th, which is a Saturday. There is a new intern coming on board with the RACVB, Lauren Petty. The RACVB also will be opening its own gift shop inside its building. And the RACVB received the Kern County Board of Trade grant for the amount of $4,855. For the month of December, there was a total of 1 production for the Ridgecrest Film Commission. I can't talk at all. Inyo Kern Airport was 1 production as well for December filming, so total was only $70,000. It's $70,000 we didn't have. And the next meeting will be February 3rd at the Kern McGee Center, 8 a.m.
Also, just to add one more thing, Madam Mayor and Council, they're looking at also being able to provide us, hopefully, a financial report as to the money that we gave them.
Thank you. I was wondering if they could tell us how they're coming along with the sign.
Yes, they are. We're looking at that, and they're going to go back to the agency that is helping them develop that and fine-tune it, because it may be too long or maybe too much stuff we got going on in that short span of time for people to notice what we're trying to say.
Okay.
That was pretty wordy.
Yeah.
I gave them a suggestion based on my great expertise in advertising. But I told them 7 words, no more than 7 words on there, and a picture that says something, and make it easy and quick because people go by.
Well, you're coming around that curve and you're doing 65, 70 miles an hour. Well, some
Yeah.
people more than that, but I go
Yeah.
65, 70.
I've seen you drive, yes.
Okay. Is that all, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Kern
Oh,
Cog.
excuse me just a second.
I'm sorry.
On the infrastructure committee tomorrow, can you guys possibly change that meeting to the 4th Thursday? Or talk about changing it to 4th Thursday, see if everybody can do that?
You
'Cause
talked to Lauren about that. Did you already? About the 4th Thursday?
No, I haven't talked to Lauren.
Oh, okay.
But if you can discuss that in the meeting and see if that's available.
Is that okay if we put that on the agenda, sir?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, Kern Cog, the meeting is tomorrow. Mike will be attending. League of California Cities meeting. I cannot go to the 19th one. I know, Eddie, you and Jim have gone in the past. Is anyone able to go to Adelanto?
Is that on the 19th?
I
Yeah.
think I can go. Let me double check real quick.
I know we got to be pretty good friends with the vice mayor of Adelanto at the last League of California, the league meeting at the Larry Chimboli Awards, and that was pretty interesting, so I think you'll enjoy it.
If you can get me
Jim,
the
are you gonna
information
go
on that.
too?
I'm available.
I'm available as well.
So both go?
Sure.
Okay. Kern Association of Cities, the meeting was canceled because we are going to be meeting with Governor Wilson. East Kern Air Pollution Control District, I gave you that information about the grant money. And there is a series of, it's been published in the Daily Independent as our local adjudicated newspaper, a number of changes that are coming up on the Air Pollution Control District standards. And so you need to look at it. It's very long. One of the things they had on there, which I couldn't understand, is why graphic arts was going to be regulated. And I said, gee, I use graphic arts. And they said because of the people that do, for instance, printing on T-shirts and things like that, the emissions that are given off by that. So that's one of the things. It's a pretty long list, and I have it available here if anybody's interested, but it's also available on their website. Indian Wells Valley Economic Development Corporation, we met last week. We have gotten a proof back for the economic development magazine that's being prepared by the group, and it will be out soon. We got a grant from the Board of Trade for, I think it was $4,500 for the sports committee, and we are working on other things. There's going to be a meeting on the 29th at 11 a.m., our next meeting. The Groundwater Management Group meets tomorrow, and so I will let you know then after that. The Groundwater Sustainability Agency meetings, they are being changed to be held here at City Hall, and they will be at 10 a.m. on Fridays, and it is the third Friday of the month. It's always following the third Thursday Groundwater Management Group. So 10 a.m. here at the city. And East Kern Economic Alliance. Eddie, you attended that last meeting?
Yes, I did. And we had Ms. Lorelei do a presentation, and she talked about the economics are causing the business to draw towards wind and solar power, seeing that the oil is down below $30 a barrel now. She talked about more solar projects that are going to be coming, and she specifically said that there's a solar project they're particularly looking at possibly in Kern County, so that we can have a voice as to, we have problems because of the population here versus the solar project that they want to do on this far end of the county. But she is looking at it real hard to see how she can help promote solar project for the East Kern, this part of the sector of East Kern. Talked about the taxes for solar. In 2019, it'd be about 30%. 2022, it'd be down about 10%. And wind from 2016 to 2020, that we'll be able to should be able to add a credit towards a solar project. So, in all honesty, there are some good things that come out of what pushes Ridgecrest, and one of them is the wind and the sun.
Thank you, sir. Navy Advisory Council, there was no need to meet. We did not. Indian Wells Valley Water District workshop is on Friday the 25th at 9 a.m. The Ridgecrest Chamber of Commerce did not meet. They normally meet the second Thursday. They are having a workshop on the 30th at 9 a.m. at the Marriott. Lori, Friends of Jawbone.
Friends of Jawbone did meet. However, I did not attend. It was on the, I actually have the agenda, but it was on the grant funding cycle, to which we did not participate in. So I did not attend that meeting today. Oh, might as well keep going, huh? Roundtable actually will meet on the next Thursday. Next Thursday is the fourth Thursday. And that's at 6:30 at the BLM. And then the Bowman Business District, I was unable to attend due to a work conflict.
We did not have a meeting, and I talked to Matthew. He is thinking we're going to suspend the meetings for a while till he defines, and we define, and the Planning Commission defines where we're going to go with that. So he said take it off the calendar, and he will let us know when we're ready. Okay, City Manager's report. Sir, finally.
Yes, well, the only thing I have to report is a reminder that the wastewater treatment facility workshop will be on the 28th at 1 o'clock here in the chamber.
Stan, did you hear that?
Good. Okay, mayor and city council comments. Let's start down this end. Mike?
I probably talked enough tonight.
Oh, no.
No.
No, you didn't.
I don't have any comments.
Eddie?
I've got just two. One of them, I wanted to thank the Church of the Latter-day Saints for hosting the MLK, Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration on Monday. Had some outstanding speakers and outstanding attendance, and it was really nice to bridge that gap or that area of diversity that needs to go on in the community. And I just thought it was really, really big of them to open up their facilities and host that. We are also looking at hosting a Black History program that will go on at 242 West Panamint. We're looking at the 3rd or 4th Saturday of February, and we're asking the community to come on out and support. We're going to have some speakers. We're going to have a community day. That's what we're kind of planning to do. And outside of that, that's all I have.
Okay. Jim?
I don't think I have anything. No, I'm good.
Lori?
Hope everybody is ready for a good full year. I'm looking forward to some things coming up. I think it was a good session tonight with the GSA, and thanks for the support with the BLM. And I'm sure we'll touch on a few subjects. Don't forget the State of the County dinner. As our own First District Supervisor is speaking, so it should be a really good time, and kind of get where we are as a whole. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, I have a couple of things. The Water District recently passed Ordinance 100, which limited watering on even days on Saturday only and odd days on Sunday only. Then I would think we need to modify our ordinances that match theirs. Is that correct, Mr. Spear?
We're in contact with the city attorney on that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just the winter time.
It'll end in March.
Can I ask a question real quick, Madam Mayor? Because I've had someone approach me, and please forgive me. I've had some people approach me in reference to, because of the restrictions we've had on water, that they've experienced dead trees. Is there anything that the city going to do in reference to the trees that...
If you want to hand water your trees or have your trees on a drip system, there is no, but you can't sprinkle in the air or onto the sidewalk any day but that.
Okay, but if they said they've already died due to the lack of water.
Died, then
that's just on them. I know you can't answer that.
I hate it. I know. I hate it.
Because I have some too.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you could water them. I mean, you could continue to water them.
Just by hand.
By hand, which they're...
Or drip system.
They have a long lifeline, and to have lost them simply because you turned your water off.
Okay.
It's hard to do that.
Okay. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Okay. I wrote something about COLA. Oh, are we still negotiating with the unions? And
Yes, we are. We, in fact, just met last week, and we're going to be meeting again in February.
okay. And the stock market has gone nuts. It seems to continue to drop and drop and drop. Do we have any investments in the stock market, whether it be through PERS or anything like that?
I'll let, pardon? Well, definitely, yeah.
How are we affected by that in any way? I know you can't do that, so you can't answer me. Maybe you could tell us.
She's just trying to get free stock advice, is what she's.
Yeah, that's it.
PERS has their much of their investments in the stock market, so it could have an impact on future PERS contribution rates. Just as if the stock market goes up, it's possible it could lower them, but
Well, they're never going to lower their rates.
Yeah, I doubt it, but it could have an impact. But
The market made a recovery today after it dropped 500 points.
500
It only
points,
closed
yeah.
down 160. So
Yeah.
Well, in terms of advice, they at Noon News, I had asked one financial advisor what his advice would be in a day like this, because it dropped so much, even though it did recover. And he said, "Well, if you feel lucky, buy."
Okay. And I would like us to look back again at the last media and art. That's one committee we needed to put on there, and the media and art committee. But at the last media and art committee, there was again the discussion of the city business district and how those side properties are going to be taken care of, because the property owners without the assessment district are not taking care of that, and Gary Charlin and Rich Project are cleaning up all those roads, the sides of the roads in front of, whatever you call it, the offset. I don't know what the word is for that. And we need to look at how we can take care of it, or can we form assessment districts? I know you said we couldn't because the city owns so much of the property, but as...
Well, you're talking with respect to the business park.
Yes. And I'd like us to look at that so we don't depend on the goodness of others to do our work. So that's all I have. I thank you all. Thank you for this meeting today. I appreciate it. We have a lot more to go. And we'll see you... we will see you on Friday the 29th, and also, wait a minute, wrong, yeah, Friday the 29th. 28th. The 28th.
That's Thursday.
Thursday the 28th. Thank you. Okay. Adjourn.